Okay, welcome everyone to the 2021 first annual student-led civics project exposition of work, the SLCPro Expo, as the young kids call it. And we're going to get all ready to kick this off. I think a really good thing to do is I am going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance like we always would do at Civics Day. So I am going to get that on, and then we will do that first, if that's okay. Okay. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Okay. All right. So I just have some very brief opening remarks. And then I have Principal Gonsalves, who's here in the morning, that's also going to have some remarks. And then we're going to have a student have some remarks as well. I just wanted to let everyone know that this is a huge day for NAMS. This is a huge day for my students and a huge day for me. We started this pilot last year. The pilot got broken up with a pandemic, and then we came right back in the fall, and I'm so happy that we're actually doing this. I have to give a huge shout out to my year one piloters who are freshmen in high school. Representative Minicucci's son Fritz being one of them. They're the ones that really kicked things off and did an online kind of virtual SLCPro last year that helped me out tremendously. So I just really want to thank them. Before I turn it over to Mr. Gonsalves, I just want to say that this morning, obviously, I was very excited, driving my family probably crazy with plans. And I'm not an athlete. I know you'll be surprised to hear that, but I do not have any sports analogies for anyone in terms of this. I know sometimes make it about sports, but I do have a couple analogies, and I am going to just quickly do an analogy of what I think I'm going through in the SLCPro, and I'm going to compare two people that you probably never thought would be compared ever. But I'm going to just share a quick slide with you, and then I'm going to, here we go. So the first slide that I'm sharing with you is my grandfather was very much into politics, and he really looked up to Thomas Tip O'Neill. And students who are on, you probably don't know, but Tip O'Neill was the Speaker of the House of Representatives in the United States, and he had a little clever phrase called "all politics is local." And you can see him here, the head of the Democratic Party with the head of the Republicans, President Ronald Reagan. And he really believed passionately in civic dialogue, civic discourse. And he's always been a huge inspiration. And for me, making phone calls and putting Google Meets together, I kind of felt, I know I'm not, as cool as Tip O'Neill, but I really feel like Tip O'Neill trying to put everybody and moving everyone together. So the second analogy, and I know you're probably never going to think that you would compare Tip O'Neill to this person, but I'm going to do it anyways, would be Eddie Van Halen, who just passed away. Eddie Van Halen, while I could never be an athlete, I wish I could be Tip O'Neill, but obviously that didn't happen. I also really tried to do music when I was younger, and that never paid off. And I always wanted to be the lead singer of Van Halen, and that never paid off. But Eddie Van Halen is a huge inspiration to me, and because of his creativity, like all of my students. And he has a wonderful quote here that I just wanted to share with my students and the audience. There are three parts to the creative process. First, there's inspiration, and then there's execution, and finally, the release. And the release is what all of my students, all 120 students, are doing. I just want to say that I have 100% participation. 120 kids turned in a civics project, a 75-page civics project. It's just huge. Of those 120, there were 15 Google Meets, some with people on the panel, 5 live meetings, 25 emails to various civic actors, 15 social media posts, 6 petitions, and 13 kids today. So that means 83 kids on the team took some kind of action, and 37 kids did voice. For a first year of a pilot during a pandemic, I'll take it. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to someone who truly is the David Lee Roth to my Eddie Van Halen, and that would be Mr. Principal Gonsalves. He has been the ultimate partner in this, and he has really, really let me do whatever I wanted to do. And the trust is huge. And he's just a huge partner and a civic ally. And I think it was really important for him to kick this whole thing off as the leader of the school. So, Principal Gonsalves, it's all you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGravey. Thank you all for being here today. I see myself a little more as Sammy Hagar, Hair Club for Men, more than I see myself as David Lee Roth, but thank you for that. And as far as giving Mr. McGravey permission, it was more like ask for forgiveness, not permission, because I could not keep up with this man. I was being dragged as if I were at a rodeo and I fell off the bucking bronco. And I'm happy that I got to take a small part of the ride and just support. So I'm going to tell you a little story. 2018 history and social science frameworks were updated, and they were updated in an amazing way. The focus became an inquiry-based approach in which teachers teach students how to think, but not what to think. That becomes their job based on developed and acquired knowledge and skills. The new civics course was introduced for grade 8. Thank you, Representative Vargas. And I'm hearing there are a couple of bipartisan senators trying to make this the law of the land for the entire country. Although we had veteran educators in grade 8, this was still a daunting task. So how did we do it? Thanks to the lifelong connections Mr. McGravey developed and fostered, he found his way to Harvard and the Democratic Knowledge Project. After several meetings and discussions, here I was at Harvard with Mr. McGravey to learn about how the DKP developed the civics curriculum. At this time, and through the present day, this curriculum has proven to be the most comprehensive yet concise approach to grade 8 civics. And what I love about it most, it has never been written in stone. Just like a good lesson, it should never be reproduced. It can only be adapted to make it better and better. As our scout, trailblazer, Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria, Pat piloted the program, all the while learning and helping to improve and adapt the curriculum to teach the standards and to connect it to students. Anyone can teach content, but teaching students is another thing. All the while, he provided regular updates to me and his colleagues who had also been using the DK curriculum this year. The accumulation of this civics course is these civics action projects and the reason why we're all here today. I cannot be more appreciative of Mr. McGravey's work, and I cannot look forward to any more of these kids' presentations. So thank you all for making the time to present and to witness. Let's begin.
Thank you, Principal Gonsalves. That was great. I really, really appreciate that. So one thing that I always wanted to do at these is I wanted after the principal, and administration come in, I would like the keynote address to be done by, no offense, politicians, but by a student. So there is a student that could not be here today that is going to make a very short speech, which is exactly going to take us to the first session. Christina Jameson is a period 85 student. I call her a period 85 student. Some would call her an OLA student, Online Learning Academy. I refuse to use that OLA word because they're not OLA students. They're NAM students who are in my 85 civics class. And that's what we've been talking about all year. This curriculum has been so successful for all kids. including my OLA kids, some who are here today. I have to give a huge shout out to the DKP, who really, George talked about changing, really made an effort to make this curriculum work for both remote and hybrid situations. And I think that Christina is going to kind of sum up the year for her beautifully. So I am going to have Christina have some very brief remarks, and then we will get to session one. All right, here we go. Hi, this is Mr. McGravey, 8B Civics. Welcome to the 2021 Civics student-led Civics Project Exposition of Work. This is the first one ever, and this is going to be a tradition that we're going to continue every year, where I pick one deserving student who is going to sum up her 1 year of civics experience in 2 minutes. The student that I've selected is from my 85 class, Miss Christina Jameson. And Christina was supposed to present today, but she had a family obligation. So this is a great opportunity for you to kind of hear a little bit from one of my civics students. So Christina Jameson, please share with the audience 2 minutes that kind of encapsulate your experience of civics this year, from when we started together in September through the Civic Action Project. So all you.
Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity, by the way. I was kind of shocked when I got the email. I was like, oh, wow, this is great, because civics has been one of my favorite classes ever. It's very, very different from any class I've ever took in middle school or elementary school. And when you think of civics, it's more than just learning about the government. It's learning about government, and it's relevant to you and relevant to people around you. It helps you connect with your community, and it just helps you learn more. And starting on that first day, I really didn't know what to expect. But when we talked about controversial topics like race and gender inequality and stuff, I was like, wow, this is a class where I can just talk about my opinions and be free about my opinions, and it's a safe space where I can just discuss, and it stays in the classroom. And I was always so engaged in learning, and the way it was taught to me, the way the Civics in Action journals were set up, I really, really enjoyed it. And having fun times in the beginning of class, maybe talking about music and stuff. It was really, really fun and memorable for me, and I just really enjoyed coming on every day. And yeah, and in the middle-ish of the year, we learned about the American Revolution and all the history to it and stuff. And I love the examples used with stuff that was relevant today to us, so it helped us relate more to the subject. And I thought that was really, really important, because it's not just reading from a textbook and just doing a standard test, and it was doing engaging and interactive projects to help us learn better. And I really, really appreciated that curriculum.
Well, we appreciate you. And the last thing that I'd like you to tell everyone is, what did the civics class give you, Christina Jameson? You're going to leave civics and your civics class in NAMS, and you're going to go on and you're going to do great things. But, later on in life, what are your takeaways from the civics class? What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about the world? Share that message, because the audience members that are here today, they have not been in our civics classes. So I'd like you to tell them, what did you get out of this experience? What did you learn? And that would be a beautiful way to end.
Okay. I learned a lot more about myself in the Unit 1 Civics project, where we talked about identity. We talked about our values and what they mean to our community and stuff. And I thought that was important, exploring our thoughts and our opinions, and just writing down all we knew. And it was really nice to do in a classroom, because I've never been able to do that before, express my opinion, express my voice. And this was a class to do it in.
All right. And I thank Christina. I thank Christina for being here. And Christina had a really great SLCPro about MCAS and changing it, or maybe even getting rid of it, having to do with anxiety among students. And it was fantastic. So I think we're ready to begin. I believe 2 of the 3 students are here. I do not see Isabella yet, but that's perfectly fine. I have her project and I can present that. Oh, she is here. Isabella, I'm so sorry. Thank you. I didn't see you when we were talking, so we're in great shape. I'd like to introduce the panel. And the first person I'd like to introduce is someone who I met a couple years ago, and he came in before COVID and just wowed my students and told them his story. And this is quite a story because State Representative Andy Vargas, this is his baby, this is his bill, this is his law. So he's seeing this unfold before his eyes. We had a meeting a week ago with Harvard, and I could just tell by the look on Andy's face that this was a very meaningful time. Representative Vargas, I just wanted to say welcome to the SLCPro Expo. Thank you for being here.
Great to be here, Pat, and thank you for that warm introduction. This is super exciting to see the tangible effects of the law on the ground, and you're the biggest champion I've seen across the state, so keep up the great work.
Thanks, Andy. My next civic ally is someone who I met through a student. Big shout out to Caitlin Parks, an 8th grader who advocated you have to get my friend Diana in to talk to the kids. This little 8th grader who is now in college and doing amazing things. She got Diana to come in, and Diana was part of the first Civics Day ever. And she brought in more speakers and judges, and she has just been a huge ally to me. Whenever I ask her to come in, she's always there. She's always supportive. She had one of her staff members meet with one of my students just this week with like a day's notice. So Senator DiZoglio, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mr. McGravey. It's great to see all of you this bright and cheerful morning. And yes, I was thrilled when Caitlin, who was an intern in my office, I think she was only 14 or 15 years old and wanted to volunteer, and her parents were helping to make that happen, had invited me to participate in your civics class, where it was the first ever civics class that we had in North Andover Public Schools. And at that time, I think it was like in 2012, I had been filing legislation to pass civic education in the Commonwealth. But we really needed to get some support here in the Merrimack Valley, and Caitlin and your students were part of making that happen and making sure that we got some attention to the issue. So North Andover leading as usual, North Andover Public Schools leading as usual, and the youth in the community leading as usual. So very excited and humbled to be here today, excited to hear these projects and continue working alongside of you. So thanks for the invitation.
Thank you so much, Senator. I appreciate it. And the next person is another civic ally, the moderator of town meeting, Mr. Mark DeSalvo. Mark continues to be there for me, whether it's recording Google Meets, talking to the kids about town meeting, coming in and meeting with kids. Mark has just been such a civic ally. He really embodies wanting civic engagement in the public. So, Mr. DeSalvo, I'd just like to say welcome, and I'm so glad you're here.
It's my delight, Pat, and I'll only say as one of those precocious kids like the ones that are sitting in front of us, I never enjoyed the support as a student about the importance of civic engagement and, frankly, civil action. And the last thing I'll say is that Christina Jameson wins the prize of the day for best background.
All right. And then I have a new civic ally who I just met maybe a couple months ago, Max Butterbrod, who is on the Housing Authority. And it's always great to have one more civic ally. So Max, welcome to NAM Civics and the whole thing. What a way to introduce everything. Thank you for being here, Max.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you for having me. It was an honor to meet you and happy to be an ally.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I think we're ready to begin. The way this is going to go is I am going to have the students briefly summarize their SLCPro. I'm going to be guiding them through the entire process. And then we're going to have an opportunity for feedback from the panel, and then we're going to go to the next student. All right, so Isabella, are you ready? Are you all set?
Yep.
Okay, so Isabella, I think what I'm going to do, because we're getting close to time, I'm going to just kind of guide you through. I'm going to ask you some questions. And then at the end, if you feel really strongly about me wanting to show anything in your summary, I will do that. Okay, so Isabella is a student in my 81 class, and she has a very unique project. So Isabella, could you just briefly talk about what your topic or what your issue is, please?
My issue is about poverty in Essex County, more specifically North Andover, and the change I wanted to make was that a homeless shelter should be installed in North Andover, because there is none currently.
That's so great. And Isabella felt very strongly about this. If you look at her summary, and if we have time at the end, I'll share it with you. She's created a website to make this happen. And I've just been so impressed. And again, not all civic students are out there. Look at me. Isabella is a very, very calm, chill, behind the scenes person. And it was so great to see her project unfold. I'm just so proud of her. Isabella, can you talk a little bit? You did some really cool research. Can you just give me a few tidbits about the research and what you found? I would love that.
So I was really surprised that actually Essex County has been the most impoverished county in New Jersey for a long time now. The most recent article I saw that was stating this was, I think, December 2020, but it's been like this for about maybe a few years before that even. And what also surprised me is that Essex County also is one of the New Jersey counties that earns the most in terms of GDP, I think, but yeah, they're still the most impoverished, which is really weird. I think they could probably put their tax money towards a homeless shelter in North Andover, because they have the money to do that.
Great. And Isabella, just so we know, Isabella did do some research of a community in New Jersey with a lot of homeless people and wanting to maybe have an opportunity to have an exchange. If you look more at her project and more of her website, you will definitely see that. And clearly she has chosen to be here today, and she has chosen to do some action about this. So if it's okay, just to kind of wrap things up before we get to the panel who can ask some questions, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to briefly show you her website that she created, if that's okay. All right, let's see here. I think this is it. Okay, so this again, Essex County, New Jersey, Essex County, Massachusetts, and I'm just going to run through these. She did a little bit of a history. She talked about issues in the United States and reasons why this is happening. Again, this is all in the agenda, so you can all see this. And again, she has some data and she has some statistics. And again, now she's talking about making that connection and having us be supportive of another community, which I thought was brilliant. And then, of course, she thanked everyone. So again, I thought this was so unique because at first I was like, Essex, and then her and I, through commenting and through talking, we understood it would be almost like an exchange program, New Jersey, North Andover, which I thought was brilliant, and I was so great to follow it. So Isabella, is it okay? Are you ready for feedback now from the panel? Is that okay? All right, great. Thank you so much. Okay, so Representative Vargas, maybe just about a minute of some questions or some comments, some things you liked, follow up, whatever you'd like to do, Andy. We would love to hear it.
Sure. Thank you. Isabella, great job with your presentation. And obviously, this is a critical issue that we're facing not only in the Merrimack Valley or in Essex County, but across the Commonwealth. And so I'm really glad that you picked this issue. And I would love to hear a little bit more about your why. So much of civics and participation in our democracy is driven by why people do what they do, right? What is it that brings them to this issue? And when you find something that you're really passionate about, that why can really drive you to actually produce some results to improve our society. So I'm curious as to why did you pick this issue? What made you so passionate about homelessness? How did you arrive at this issue?
So my family comes from the Philippines, which is a very like impoverished country. I would go there really often, and I would meet with like my relatives and stuff, and they were usually much more like poor than me. And sometimes like I would go along the streets, and there were a lot of like people who like didn't really have like homes. They would just like sleep on the sidewalk and such. So I really wanted to use like my privilege as someone who's like more upper middle class to bring awareness of like poverty, especially like in my own hometown and like home county, because I just don't want like people to end up like that, obviously. And I think we could probably do it if we tried.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you. That was a great question. If it's okay, I think I'm going to have Senator DiZoglio go next because she does have something and she's going to be popping in and out. So Senator DiZoglio, would you like to offer some feedback to Isabella before you have to maybe take off for a little bit?
I would love to. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Isabella, great job. This is an amazing issue to take on and just incredible work. I want to thank you for bringing attention to the issue of homelessness and the challenges surrounding that, even in towns like North Andover. I think that a lot of times people think, well, you know, it's North Andover, it's a more affluent community, they're not facing as many challenges. People around the area aren't facing as many challenges. And I think that it's incredible that you have had the wisdom to see through that and to understand by living in the community that there certainly are challenges with, you know, income disparities and housing opportunities, and we are in a housing crisis across Massachusetts, not just in the gateway cities, but also in communities like North Andover. People are struggling right now. So I want to thank you for that, for highlighting that. I want to thank you for drawing attention to the data too. You brought up a couple of numbers. I think it was good that you actually took the time to do some research. You were passionate about it. You had these thoughts. You knew you were seeing it in the community, but then you didn't just stop there. You went out and you got some data to support your argument, to help to advance your cause. My question to you is, how do you think that we as leaders in the community, because I think that, you know, it was great with Mr. McGravey that years ago we were doing these civics days, and we're able to, you know, advance the cause of civics starting in North Andover from the youth. What do you think we as leaders should be doing to get your message out there, to carry this message further?
I think awareness in general is really important, because I feel like the fact that Essex County is one of the most like poor, or like the one with the most homeless people in New Jersey is a statistic that like really surprised me. I think that was my whole that what made me like motivated to go through with this like topic and project, because I feel like not a lot of people are aware of this, because all you really see is like our town, which is like a pretty middle class town. And yeah, I think that just mentioning that, or like letting people know these facts, would really get them like to care more about this. And yeah.
Great. Thank you, Isabella. Thank you. And that was great. Thank you so much. And we're doing okay in time. We might be running down a little bit, but I think it's really important that we have all of our wonderful panel respond. And Isabella, I also want to compliment you for being first. That's not always an easy thing to do, and you are just you're making NAM so proud. Mr. DeSalvo, I would love to hear feedback, questions, comments that you have for Isabella.
Pat started the day talking about Van Halen and the 3 words or reasons that are necessary to support creativity. I'd like to talk about the 3 that are necessary to create responsible public policy. To me, it's courage. You've demonstrated that already by choosing this subject. Kudos to you, Isabella. Number 2 is hard work. You've done that. Number 3 is more hard work. And that's the big hurdle to get over. And I'll tell you that the result sometimes is unsatisfactory, that you hope that your interest, the subject that you've chosen, this goes for all of our students, by the way, will have some relevance. But for the most part, it might not be appreciated and your work may be unheralded, but it's consequential. And you, just by starting to talk about how to educate other people in the community, is consequential to begin with. The biggest thing that I think you need to start thinking about, and I'm speaking as somebody who founded a homeless shelter 40 years ago, and it was a wet shelter, meaning that it was for those people who are alcoholic and drug addicted, not a family-oriented shelter. Much, much harder circumstance. That shelter called Daybreak is still going on right now. And the narrow solution is that in that shelter, we help 60, 80 people a day, particularly in the wintertime, just live, survive. The larger issue, and it's important that you address that smaller, narrower issue. But the larger issue is how to convince your peers, because my peers of my age have not respected this, that housing, establishing housing, is a right. And that's the more important issue. So I'd ask you to think about how to twin those 2 going forward. And kudos, a standing ovation for me.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you very much. That was great. And thanks for sharing that perspective. I really appreciate that. And I'm sure Isabella does as well. Max, my friend, please offer some feedback or some questions for Isabella. I really appreciate you being here.
Of course. Like everyone said, it's a very tough issue to take on. Homelessness is such a hard issue. And like Mark was saying, it's hard to get people to care about it. And in your presentation, I noticed you talk about using empathy to get people to care. So I guess my question is, what kind of, using empathy, what your message would be to those people to get them invested in this issue you care about?
So you're asking how I'm gonna use empathy for people to get people to care about my issue?
Yep.
I think if I were to maybe if I could get some voices from some people who were homeless or are homeless in Essex County and maybe get their word on it, I think that would really make an impact, maybe, because I feel like not a lot of people in North Andover have like gone face to face with like poverty or people who are in poverty, because our town is so small and we just don't really see that sort of thing.
Great. Isabella, thank you so much. And Isabella, if obviously, if this was the Van Halen concert, you knocked it out with the opening song and the crowd is loving it. So thank you so much, Isabella. You're totally free to stay, or if you have other things to do, please feel free to leave the Google Meet. But thank you very much. We really, really appreciate it.
Mr. McGravey, if I could just chime in real quick before Isabella goes. I'm sorry, I know we're running over a little bit.
No, that's fine. That's fine, Andy.
Isabella, I just wanted to add that, there might be an opportunity this Tuesday night for you to advance this issue in North Andover. If you're curious in getting involved in the housing discussion that's happening in our region, you should take a look at what's on the town meeting agenda for this Tuesday and see how you can build on this civics project and have a tangible way to turn that into action. And if I can be helpful with that at all, I'll definitely put my email here, because we're going to be doing some organizing around that as well. And we could use your voice and your story and your narrative.
And Andy, I'll connect you and Isabella with Emra, with your assistant, and thank you so much for offering that. That's great.
And as the town moderator, I'll only say that she is most welcome to speak, even though probably certainly not 18 years old. I will recognize you if you choose.
No pressure, Isabella. Isabella, we have a lot to talk about Monday. You just soak in this moment and we'll talk Monday. This was great. Thank you, Isabella, so much. Thank you. All right. So all right. See you later, Isabella. So now we're going to move to my friend Jason Goslin, who is in my 85. He has been online this year. I also wanted to say that Senator DiZoglio talked about research and talking about the research that Isabella did. The DKP felt passionately about credible research, and this was a huge part of the SLCPro, and it's evident with what you're getting from the kids. I also want to add that Jacek and Isabella, along with I think 6 other OLA kids or Period 85 kids, they were part of a Harvard study where Harvard literally came into my virtual class every day for 4 months to observe and get feedback. And then my students were part of a study that they got paid for, and they were being studied at Harvard. So kudos to those kids in the YOLA class. Okay, so Mr. Goslin, Jacek, there's so many people on. Are you there, Jacek?
Yeah, I'm here.
Jacek, if it's okay, I'm going to go through your project, and then if we have an opportunity at the end, I'm going to share something from it. So Jacek, I love your topic. It really impacts your community. Jacek was looking through the lens of NAMS and wanting to create a life skills class as part of the curriculum at NAMS. So Jacek, could you just tell the panel and the group a little bit about your project or about your issue? You can talk about it a lot more than I can.
Yeah, okay. So my project was to create a financial-based life skills course in either NAMS or at the high school. And in this class, they would just be taught how to succeed, like do taxes after you finish your education. So you can expand upon your jobs and your career.
Thank you, Jacek. And Jacek, could you just briefly talk about the why? Could you just briefly talk about the why as an 8th grader and soon moving on to high school?
Well, so for me, I've always felt that your future is kind of blank and you have no clue what's actually going to happen. And so that could bring stress if you're that type of person. And one of the best ways that I feel that you could minimize the uncertainty that you're going into would be by having a class such as the one as I'm proposing.
Great. Thank you so much. And Jacek, could you talk a little bit, you don't have to give us a play-by-play, but could you just unpack just a little bit of the research and what you learned? Because you came up with some great stuff in your research.
Well, most of the stuff that I was researching was finding out if this was something that most people would actually support and get behind. Because I knew that there was a little bit of an audience around it. I knew that people were talking about it, but I wanted to see if they were supporting it, if they didn't think that we should actually have it, or what was actually going on. So one thing that I did was I looked into the Google, I sent out a form and polled all of our students in 8th grade and saw if they wanted to, if this was something that they'd be into, and if they thought it was going to be useful.
That was great. Yeah. So Jacek emailed me a Google form. I put it on all 5 of my Google Classrooms, had the kids do it at the beginning of class, and boom, Jacek had data. And so many kids did that. And that was all Jacek. That was not a requirement of the project at all. So he went above and beyond. So before we get to feedback, I just want to share a little bit of Jacek's product, if that's okay. And then we are going to go right to feedback. All right. Let's see here. Let's see. Well, that's not it. I apologize. Wrong tab. Let me try it again. Here it is. So obviously, I'm just going to show you some of the slides. He gets into the why, talking about the now, what the current situation is. He even has figured out when this would take place. Topics. He's gone into the curriculum. Obviously, he's put in so much thought into this. Real life experiences. This is the data from the survey from the kids. And again, this is all in the agenda for any of you who want to see this more in detail. So Jacek, thank you so much. And I'm going to turn it over to the panel. So I'm actually going to start with Max this time. I'm going to flip it around. So Max, so you're not going last again. I'm going to have you go first, Max.
Yeah, and just real quick, Mr. McGravey, the links for his project are private, so I can't open them on the links you sent us.
We'll take care of that, Max. We'll take care of that. Thank you for that.
But Jason, this is an amazing class to have. I mean, I just finished my education, and the real life adult world is hitting me like a ton of bricks. You know, like you were saying, taxes, cards, home buying. I was never taught how to do any of that stuff, so I'm literally Googling it, asking my parents, and it was something I was never taught. So I really appreciate you getting into this issue. I was just curious. I wanted to ask, has anything like this been taught? Like, are there any like 1 week programs, or do any of your teachers try, or is it really just an issue that hasn't been addressed at all?
I can speak to that a little bit. In grade 7, we offer 2 math courses. One is much more hands-on. It's called Applied Math and Science. And Jacek could speak a little bit about his experience in that. But if you were to ask where, if at all, this is taught in any way, it would be in the AMS course, where students create their own companies, their own businesses, and they do a little bit of finance. But it's still pie in the sky, dream, imagine. It's not necessarily the tangible day in, day out grind of what it means to keep a checkbook and such.
Hey, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Max. Thank you very much. And thank you, Principal Gonsalves. That's great. Thank you for sharing that insight. Mr. DeSalvo, we'd love to hear from you about this.
Until Mr. McGravey explained what DKP meant in context of this, I thought it stood for Dragon Killer Points and in video games, and it still does. And I think, Jacek, you have the opportunity to rack up some real DKP with both meanings, as a matter of fact. As a former school committee member, I start with 3 things. Haunt your principal, your teachers, the superintendent of schools, and the school committee. They will listen to you. They may not act very readily, but they will listen to you. And that's the first level of DKP. The next level is showing them why it's important and how it can work. One of the suggestions that I might make for you, and I know in high school this is addressed in a specific course, so you could do a little bit more research there. But maybe you should think about starting a NAMS club around the subject that you wanted to put together. And I'm sure, and I'll lobby him right now, Principal Gonsalves, just might help assign you a teacher to help guide that club as well. Sorry, Jorge, but notwithstanding, oh, good, see? You always get allies on your behalf, Jacek, to help sell. And I just encourage you to look for something that's executable right now. What can you do to show that it is important in order to extend not just your research, but real fact? That helpful?
Yes, very. That was one thing I was a little concerned about, and that was probably the trickiest part of this project for me, was trying to find a time where I could do that. But the suggestion of a club was very useful. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you so much. And Jacek, you could have 2. One, NAMS, your old place, and North Andover High School, your new one. So that's definitely something to think about. So that was food for thought. Representative Vargas, we'd love to hear from you and giving some feedback to Jacek. That would be great. Thank you, Andy.
Sure. So when I think about the most important skill sets and values and education that students need to leave our public schools with. Obviously, civics is at the top of my list, but right after that is financial literacy, right? And making sure that our students are prepared to be not only active and engaged citizens, but also responsible with their own finances and that of their loved ones in their community, and ultimately public dollars as well. So thank you for picking this issue. It's super important on multiple layers. I had some ideas similar to Moderator DeSalvo's around can you pick what's called a minimum viable product? In entrepreneurship, MVP is the acronym, right? And so the idea is like, how do you actually prove a proof of concept so that then you can scale your idea a little bit bigger, right? And so maybe that's a club, but maybe that's also figuring out how to embed it into the existing curriculum or an existing class, right? How do we improve the curriculum that already exists so that we can show what the effects are on that? And then that allows you to then collect some data, show some impact, to then scale it a little bit bigger. And the same applies, from entrepreneurship to the public sector. We can take many of those principles and apply them here as well. So kudos to you on a great issue that you've picked. And the last idea that I'll just mention is there are probably a lot of advocates in your community that want to be involved in this project, right? Think accountants, think real estate folks, think first-time homebuyer programs, right? These are people that could be coalition members or allies on your project that might want to help fund your project, fund a club, fund a meeting, provide the food to bring students together. So think about those external partners that might have an interest in supporting you.
Great. And I also just want to say that I had a meeting with Representative Vargas last week with the DKP, and he gave us some feedback, Jacek. And the feedback that he gave us that I thought was brilliant was, don't just focus on politicians. There are groups, there are tons of organizations that you can use as allies. So I think next year when we definitely do the SLCPro, I'm definitely going to highlight that a little bit more. It was there in the background, but I don't think it was given quite equal weight to the politicians. So thank you for that, Andy. That was great feedback, and that's going to help us so much. I think Senator DeZoglio is here. She also referenced that she's at another thing and someone might speak for her. So are you all? Oh, great. Thank you so much. And this is Kaylee. Is that correct?
Yes. I'm Senator DeZoglio's legislative aide. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So Diane needed to step out for a moment, but she feels very important about people getting feedback. So Kaylee, would you like to give Jacek some feedback in terms of what you've been hearing about his SLCPro project?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the project is great, and I think I commend you for doing the extra work you did to get the opinion of your fellow classmates. I think that's greatly important, and it makes for a stronger argument, definitely. But Senator DeZoglio, I know, is very supportive of financial literacy and independence for young adults, and filed a bill relative to that. And yeah, I would just say, if there's anything we can do to get the project moving forward, reach out to us. And we would love to have you testify for that bill. And we get this moving a little bit quicker if you could. And yeah, I think there's a lot of room for this to happen.
Great. That was great feedback. And Jacek, I think that's a great way to end. All my civic allies and all my wonderful people that are helping reach out with the students, the one thing that I did learn, a little technological thing, and I know Mr. Gonsalves knows this already, our students can't receive emails from people on their North Andover Public Schools account. So I am getting their personal emails for everyone so things don't bounce back. We did learn that when some of the school committee reached out to the kids and but anyways, we've learned that. Jacek, I want to say thank you so much. I know, Jacek, you have a very busy day. I was talking to your mom. So thank you for taking the time out. And that was just great, Jacek. Bravo to you. Thank you so much, my friend. Bye, Jacek. All right. We now have Paul. Paul is going to be the last student to go. And Paul, I'm so proud of Paul because Paul has such a cool project. His project is basically, and he's going to talk about it a lot more than I am. His project was, the cool thing about college and high school is that you're allowed to pick your classes. And in elementary and middle, it's not so much, obviously a foreign language, and things like that. So Paul, actually, we're going to talk about Paul's product at the end, which was pretty awesome. But Paul, why don't you elaborate a little bit about what your topic is and why you feel so strongly about it, and then we'll talk about your product at the end. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, so the topic that I've chosen was letting students choose their academics. And this was geared to students in like elementary school and middle school and going forth. And the reason why I chose this is when the pandemic got halted, a lot of students fell behind on their academics. And I think specifically with North Andover, we have a strong education system. But if you look at outside of our community, outside of the country, with places that have a bigger education system like Boston and New York, I really saw that students were losing some academic experience with their academics.
Sorry, I'm muting myself. I got a house full of kids here, so I just didn't want to make sure they were yelling over everyone. Paul, could you please just share? You found some cool research too. You did some really definitive research. You were really going to town in class on it, and I really liked what you filled out in your forms for research. Tell us a little bit about the research across the country and internationally that you discovered.
Yeah, so I found that many students are learning, which is very good. But I think that the most important thing is applying it in the future. I think that students are learning good material, but I think that they're losing a really big factor, and that's applying it in different situations in the future as they get older.
Thank you. And I will say that Paul's product was pretty much, I mean, talk about action. Paul had a meeting, a Google Meet meeting that I facilitated with the chair of the school committee, Miss Helen Picard. And Paul advocated really, really hard for this. And we had a lovely dialogue. But I did feel like a third wheel. I felt like, I mean, they did not need me at all. I was like, why am I here other than putting them together? Because those two were just going and going and going. And I think Paul now has fostered a relationship and with an ally, with Helen, who also has been an amazing, amazing advocate. She is not going to be able to come here today. She had an engagement, but Pam, the new school committee member who was just elected, is going to be joining us. So I'm thrilled about that. So Paul's product, it is in the agenda. If you wanted to watch the Google Meet, it is there. Okay, so I am going to go back to Andy. I'm going to go back to you, Andy, as you could give Paul some feedback about school choice for picking classes.
Sure. Thank you. And Paul, wonderful idea here. I think it's also a great way to show that students do have that independence, right? Are able to make decisions for themselves, and can also empower students to realize that they have agency at a younger age. And I think there's a lot of research out there that shows that when we empower students to control their destinies, they step up to the plate and they take those opportunities. So thank you for putting this forward. I'm curious if there's a district that is doing this already, right? Is there a district or a school that we can point to that's like, they're doing it and it looks great and the results are awesome?
There's sadly not that many people that are doing this, but I've done a little research outside of the country, and I think that there's a certain structure in Germany where they split students into certain courses where they do like a school for like music, athletics, and like education. And I think that there's been a lot of success with that type of structure.
Awesome.
Excellent.
That's great.
Excellent. That was great. That was excellent. Okay, so now we're going to go to Kaylee. Would you like to speak on Senator DiZoglio's behalf and give Paul a little bit of feedback representing the office? Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is a great idea. I personally have not heard much about that before, and I think it's really creative and a great idea to get kids more engaged. I know it can be really difficult, especially in elementary school and middle school, to get kids excited about doing schoolwork, and I think that could help greatly.
Excellent.
And I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
look into that more. That's really interesting.
Excellent. Thanks for the feedback. We appreciate it. Mr. DeSalvo, we'd love to hear from you. And clearly you and Paul have some kind of connection because you did give him some greeting by name this morning. So that's really great that you already know each other.
So I guess I should describe that connection. Paul, I had the privilege of being interviewed by Paul when he was in the Kittredge School, as a matter of fact, as a profile of some civic leader. And I'll just relate that it was among the most insightful interviews that I've ever had, including Boston Globe Pulitzer Prize winning journalists. So kudos, Paul. It's unsurprising to me that you continue asking hard questions and seek good truths. Choice is an affirmative motivation. And I think one of the things you want to frame around this is that what is the expected result, which I didn't see in your research. And I'd suggest as a hypothesis is that you take a look at that the affirmative ability to make a choice will provide greater motivation for learning, therefore get consequential better results. And it's that last piece that you need to do a little bit of work on. Finding the baseline information out of Germany is really great. The last thing I'll tell you is that professionals and adults always think they know more than the kids. And in truth, it's not often always the case. I see your principal shaking his head in agreement. And I'll just leave you with two words: challenge authority. Keep on doing it, Paul.
Thank you.
That's great. And before we get to Max, both Andy and Mark said something about the future. And I didn't drop this on my students because I wanted them to live in the now. But as Representative Vargas will tell you, and of course, Senator DeZoglia was a huge supporter of this bill as well. This 8th grade, this SLCPro is only one part of the law. This is supposed to follow you to 10th grade. So this is going to continue and it's going to evolve. And I am going to have a meeting over the summer with the head of the social studies department, Brian Sheehy, who is a colleague, who's an amazing, amazing educator. And him and we're going to take it to the next level. And this is definitely going to continue into the 10th grade for North Andover. So I just wanted to add that before I forgot that little tidbit.
I'll predict that Paul will be writing about this very subject in his PhD dissertation in educational policy.
Yeah, absolutely. And Paul, sadly, I'm say North Andover Public Schools is losing Paul. He's going to be going to Phillips Academy, which is a huge success to him, but a huge loss for the North Andover Public Schools. But Paul is going to go on and he's going to do some amazing things. And I just think you're great, Paul. Thank you. Okay, Max, you're going to get the last little piece of feedback, and then my first panel. I really appreciate everything that you've done.
Yeah, awesome. Great project. I watched your video with Helen, and I have to commend you for going, toe to toe, head to head with her. I know it's not easy, especially 25 minutes. And Mr. McGravey was right. He really didn't do much. Like, it was really you guys going at the issue, and like Mark was saying, challenging authority. You really did that, and you have this issue, and you know your stuff, and you're making it happen. So I commend you for that.
That's great. Well, Paul, thank you so much. You're welcome to stay, or you can head out. And my first group, my first panel, this just was unbelievable. This is uncharted waters for me. And this has just been so great. I also just want to give a quick shout out to Chabon from the Democratic Knowledge Project. Chabon is the person who wrote this SLCPro curriculum. She is the leader of this. I've been working with Chabon for 3 years now. I met her about 3 years ago. And Chabon, if you just wanted to briefly say, where are you Google Meeting from, please? And just what are you thinking so far? If you could answer those two quick things before we go to the second panel.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I am from South Korea right now. I'm staying in Korea, so now I think it's like a midnight. But I'm so thrilled to see like how the kids are like presenting their work. It's so amazing. I just always say that actually, Pat, this is not just my work. I am doing some part of our whole curriculum design, but you are the one who really made it sort of possible. You gave this project your breath in kind of the spirit. So I'm so much thankful to be part of your journey. And I'm so glad to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. So the SLCPro Expo is gone global. Okay, we are global. So that's really, really cool. So my first panel, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We're running a little bit behind, but I think I've figured out a way to kind of catch things up for students and panelists waiting. And the first panel, you're welcome to stay and check everything out, or you're welcome to go on with your busy day. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay, so we are now moving on to the second panel of more civic allies. And I am just absolutely thrilled to have these three people on with us because I've had a connection with them and they've just been so supportive. So the first person that I'd like to just briefly say hello to is someone that is not only a state representative, she's a friend. I've known her since the Kittredge Elementary School. She was in class with my brother. I taught her older brother, and obviously her parents were wonderful parents that I worked with when I taught her brother, and that is State Representative Christina Minicucci. Christina, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Pat, for having me. It's exciting to be here. I've loved listening to these projects. I've been listening in the background and really enjoy everything I'm hearing, and can't wait to hear more. I've read a little bit about the ones in our group, so I'm excited to hear the presentations.
Excellent. And Christina was nice enough to have a Google Meet with two of my students earlier on this week. So she's gotten a little taste of this process. So it's so great that she's here.
And you know, like a little side note, did you notice Andy Vargas also mentioned the MVP? Our Harvard professor would be very proud that both of us brought our classroom learning
together. That's right. That's right. That's awesome. Okay, so the next person that I would like to speak about is Melissa Murphy Rodriguez. So Melissa Murphy was literally not even on the job yet, and I haunted her with an email. I found her emailed her old place, and I emailed her about coming in to talk to the kids, and she barely was sworn in, and she came and presented to my kids in 2019, and she just continues to support this program, whether it's a Google Meet. She met with two kids this week. She is a huge local ally, and she, I just really enjoy working with her so much. So Melissa, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I've been gushing about your two students all week to anyone who will listen. So I'm happy to be here. The civics program I went through in 7th and 8th grade made all the difference in my career choices. And so I'm so proud to be a part of this program. Thank you, Ms. McGravey.
Thank you, Melissa. So Senator Tarr is another person that has been with me. I got connected. I believe my students were supposed to, on my history camp, we were supposed to go see the Senate, and Senator DiZoglio had a conflict, and she has a wonderful relationship with Bruce, and Bruce filled in and gave my kids the tour. And then I started talking to some of Bruce's wonderful staff, and I told them about the civics pilot, and the next thing you know, Bruce is at the North Andover Middle School presenting. And during the pandemic, when I could not have Bruce come in for a second year, he was nice enough to do a Google Meet from his office with the Massachusetts flag in the background. And that just wowed the kids. And it was like, live from Beacon Hill, Senator Tarr. So Senator Tarr, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you very much, Mr. McGravey. I'm thrilled to be here with you, and thrilled because I am so enthusiastic about what you are doing as an educational leader with regard to civics education. Like my colleagues on this in this event, I was heavily involved in the development of civics education legislation, particularly in the Senate with Senator Chandler and also with Senator DiZoglio. And when you're working for something like that, you really hope that something that happens on Beacon Hill will translate into something positive back home. And to be able to see what you're doing and what your students are doing, really it fulfills that expectation more than I could have possibly expected. So I'm thrilled to be here with you, and I too have been listening in the background, and I'm just so impressed by the student leadership that's been showcased here so far, and looking very much forward to see the next projects.
Thank you, Senator Tarr. So the next panelist is someone who I got to know first as a parent. I taught her wonderful daughter when I was a U.S. history teacher. My former life, that's gone. Now I'm a civics teacher, and you know, she's newly elected to the select board, and Janice Phillips has been so supportive of this program. She total buy-in as a community member. She would speak on my behalf, I think, and just praise this. Her excitement about it, it just makes me so happy. Janice actually did a Google Meet with me with another student that was very eye-opening for the student. Janice, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is really one of the most exciting parts of my job at the moment is getting to be a part of this amazing program. I'm really ecstatic about the projects that I've seen, and I love hearing what all of these really engaged, brilliant students have to say and how they are going to work to make our community better. I think we all have that same goal in mind, that end goal in mind, and I love getting them involved in that. So it's truly my honor to be here today.
Thank you, Janice. So Henry, you have been very patient. Henry got here really early, and he has stayed and kind of been there to support his classmates. So thank you, Henry. And Henry, if it's okay, I'm just going to guide you through your project, which was a brilliant one. So Henry talked about the celebration of holidays, not just Christian holidays, non-Christian holidays. And Henry was a man on a mission. He did amazing research, and he sent an email to school committee members Picard and Mabley that is his email is in the agenda, and I mean, I barely edited it. I mean, he just did it on his own. I was a fly on the wall for that. And he got a wonderful response. And I think the response was nice, but I don't know if it necessarily satisfied Henry, and maybe Henry might want to take it up to the next notch. So Henry, could you just please tell us a little bit about your topic, what it is, why you picked it? We would love to hear that.
So my topic was discrimination based on religion, and my issue was that schools give days off for Christian holidays, but not for major non-Christian holidays. And I think that they should, like, for not every holiday, but for some of them, like, kids have to skip school and they should have the day off so they don't, like, miss a lot of stuff. Because I've had experiences where I've had to miss sometimes, like this year I had to miss the second in-person day in school, and I think, like, I could have missed some important information, and, like, kids shouldn't have to, because they can miss, like, field trips, and in some cases some kids miss exams, and it's just important to them that they have to choose, and they shouldn't have to choose.
Thank you, Henry. Henry, you did a lot of research on this. Your research was very credible, very reliable. You had a wide variety of sources. Could you just kind of encapsulate just a little bit about some of the research? What did you get out of your research from non-North Andover schools?
I got out of the research that, first of all, there are other places that do give off, like in New York, they give off days for a few other holidays because there's, like, a growing amount of people who celebrate those holidays. And I also found that there's a lot of people who shared similar experiences. In one website I found, it was from a mom who, like, documented how her kids had to miss, like, a lot of stuff to go to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur services, and they were very bummed out, but they couldn't, like, skip the services, and they had to miss a field trip with their friends. And it was
You got a lot of testimony. You found a lot of great stuff. So Henry, I haven't asked this question to any of the kids, but I really want to ask you. So you're here at the SLCPro, you sent an email, you got a response. You did not choose voice. You chose action. You didn't make a poster. You didn't do the route that some of the other kids go. So two-part question for you, and then we're going to turn it over to the panel. Question one, why did you decide action? And second question, are you glad that you did that, or do you regret it and wish you had done a poster?
I chose action because I thought it was important to at least try and make an issue known, no matter what because it was important to me, and I don't regret it because I think it worked out pretty well, and I think it was the right thing to do, even if I didn't get everything that I wanted to happen.
Great answer, Henry. Thank you so much. So I am going to start the panel off with State Representative Minicucci, who I know that she definitely has read, your email, and she's definitely done the research here and found out a little bit about your project, and I know she has an opinion about it. So Christina, we'd love to start the feedback session with you.
Thank you. Henry, thank you. It's a great proposal, a great project. I really liked the email that you sent to the school committee because that was real action. I mean, it's voice, but that's also action, because if you were listening in to Moderator DeSalvo earlier, he said to be a haunt, and he said to pester everybody and not give up. And so I really thought that was a great email. And in reading the response, I think I was a little bit wasn't entirely sure that it answered your question or addressed your issue. So I'm pleased to see that you would like to continue with action. What would you think for next steps? What would be ideal for you? What would you like to see the school do? Is it just days off, or is it something broader, more inclusive of holidays? What are your thoughts?
I think it starts with maybe for major holidays like Ed and Yom Kippur, maybe they don't have to miss school, but then there's a lot of activities that kind of they say it's holidays, but it really centers mostly around Christmas and Easter. Maybe start doing things that center around other holidays and activities like that.
Great. Thank you. That was great feedback. Great conversation. This was excellent. So Melissa, we'd love to hear from you and some feedback or some things that you'd like to offer to Henry.
Sure. Hi, Henry. One of the things that I really appreciated about your project and about your email was the depth. It really gave us a lot of information to hold on to. It wasn't just a I think statement. It was an I think because statement. And I think when you do that, it's really powerful. One of the things that I think would really help you in this argument is multiple voices. So sometimes one voice can be squeaky, but many voices are squeakier. And I think that it would be helpful to you if you could do a petition and try to get more people on board with this request, because I do think it's a reasonable request. And as a community that is constantly trying to be inclusive and to be respectful of all different types of people, I think it's rather reasonable as well. So well done, Henry.
And just and Henry, you can respond, and then I'll just do a quick feedback. Go ahead, Henry.
No, I was just going to say thank you.
Henry, just something I thought of is talking about allies that Melissa mentioned. Obviously, there's, Christian and non-Christian, but non-Christian is, there's Jewish and Muslim, and there are a lot of other. So talking about allies, possibly reaching out to, members that, are part of our diverse community might be something for you to think about. So thank you, Melissa. That was a really great piece of feedback. Okay, so Senator Tarn, now you finally get an opportunity to give some feedback. You've been sitting here for a while. I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Well, thank you, Mr. McGravey. First of all, Henry, thank you for a wonderful project. And there are a couple of important things that I think your project points out. Number one, it's important always not to fail to challenge and rethink about things that have been in place for a long period of time, because sometimes those conventional things are not necessarily fair in the current context. And so you thought about looking at something that has been done for a long period of time and suggesting that it's not appropriate in the current context. And that is critically important. The second thing that I think is important about what you identified is that one of the great strengths of our country is how it evolves to be able to promote diversity. And diversity is one of the great strengths of our country. And so beyond any individual holiday, I think the fact that you identified a way to boost and promote the integration of diversity into our schools, which are also critically important to the future of our society, is really important. And I want to ask you a question, Henry, for just a moment. So you described something that's very important in lobbying, in trying to move other people to join you. And that is explaining how something affected you personally. Because their statistics are important and fact-based information is important, but people are also people. And we're moved by relating to other people and what they feel and what they think. So I was hoping you could explain a little bit, just briefly, about how you felt about having to miss I believe you said it was the second day of in-person learning, to be able to recognize your own religious tradition.
I felt a bit like worried that I would miss important information because we were like learning how everything was gonna work, but like I needed to go to the services because like it's an obligation to my temple and everything. And I mean, it happened a lot like in other years, so it wasn't, I was kind of used to it, but I still felt pretty bad about having to miss school for it.
And I will testify that as someone who, you know, was Henry's homeroom teacher in September, it's a big day. I mean, we were doing a lot of things like how the teachers move, how to, you know, what desks, you know, all the snack, all these really, really important things. Not necessarily always academic, but that was just part of the day. So I can totally testify that not only was Henry, I mean, if I had to miss the day because of a holiday, I mean, as a teacher, that would really be upsetting to me. So I really appreciate Senator Tar, you personalizing that and putting that angle on it. That was a great piece of feedback. Do you want to say one more quick thing before I move on to Janice?
So Mr. McGravey, I would just say one other thing that I think is important, that in public life, it's always important to understand when you have someone's attention, have an ask. And Henry, that's what you did. You got people's attention, and then you said, this is what we should do. And I would encourage you to further refine that, to think about a process that could identify other holidays that are being under-recognized and help the decision makers that you want to act on your behalf to be able to understand the framework of that ask, so that we could evaluate different holidays and have some sense of how to treat folks fairly, because you touched on a fairly large subject, and it's important that there be a fair process to accommodate the diversity that you've called our attention to.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Janice, round out the feedback for our friend Henry, Henry, you're getting great feedback, and you're doing a great job, my friend.
Henry, I want to commend you for bringing forward such an important topic that sort of, what I see, it kind of has evolved over the years. We actually used to have some of those days off, and we moved away from that. And the thing that I appreciate the most is you bringing back to the table the fact that this actually has, you know, made an impact in the community, and maybe we've gotten too far away from recognizing, you know, the diversity of our community and the different things that people celebrate. So I think it's incredibly important and great that you brought this back to the table. I also reiterate that often more voices is better, and so I would encourage you, especially if we can have more student voices. I think sometimes they get a little bit maybe dismissed a little more than they should. And I think so more student voices would be better. And you are absolutely on the right track for that. And, you know, one of my sort of the thing that I intend, although I just started in this role, but my intention is to always be bringing more people to the table. And so I would encourage you to do the same thing and make sure you have lots of different voices represented as you move, you know, your discussions forward. But you are on point, and I'm glad you brought it to the forefront again.
Thank you, Janice. So Henry, you have a lot to think about, and you're welcome to stay, or you can head out, whatever you'd like to do. And thank you very much for presenting, and thank you for listening to the feedback. I hope it helped. Thanks, Henry. Okay, so the next person that we're going to go to is Varshini Ravi, and Varshini, she has demonstrated so much growth. This was a project that the kids did like a little mini version in December, and she was doing like the most amazing quality work. And I have just seen so much growth. And Varshini is a classic example of a kid who may not be on stage and may not be screaming on the mic, but Varshini is behind the scenes, and she is, feeding those people that maybe might be a little more outgoing than her. And I commend Varshini for being here today. Varshini has an amazing topic, and it's one that's very close to me because it's about having more diverse food and restaurants in North Andover. I never had diverse food growing up. The first time I ever had the most diverse food was Indian food, was when I was living in England in the 90s. I had never had any kind of food that wasn't more traditional. And, and my wife loves all kinds of diverse food, and my kids, they have had tikka masala, and I didn't have that until I was like 20 years old. So what Varshini is going to talk about is this topic. So Varshini, are you here? Hello.
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. So Varshini, could you just briefly talk about what your topic is and why you picked it, please?
So my topic is basically the lack of diverse restaurants in North Andover. And I basically just think we should either build more restaurants or like have different food from different cultures so that more people feel included and we don't have to drive like a few towns away or like miles away to get to food that we enjoy, because I feel like food is really important to probably everyone. And being able to just enjoy what you like is really special to me.
That's great, Varshini. I love that. I love that. Not only people who want the food that they enjoy, but people who want to expand their horizons a little bit, which I think is really, really important. So Varshini, you did do some research on this. What was some of the research that you found?
Before I did research, I didn't really understand some stuff, but after doing it, I got like a better idea of how I felt about stuff.
Great. And Varshini, in her evidence, looked at things like a chamber of commerce, reaching out, and different things like that. And Varshini did choose voice, and she did send an email to one of the panelists. She actually sent an email to Melissa Murphy Rodriguez, and she got an email response back. It went back and forth. And I'm just going to share something quickly before we get to the feedback. And again, I think Varshini went above and beyond here. I'm just going to pop this on really, really quickly. She has started a petition, change.org, and it is aimed at more diverse restaurants, and she provides a perspective and various reasons. So I commend Varshini for not only sending an email and getting an email response, but doing an online petition and using things that weren't here 15 or 20 years ago and being modern and using technology. So Varshini, I am actually going to have Melissa Murphy Rodriguez go first because she has a little bit of perspective in this, both feedback and reading your email and giving you a response. So Melissa, perfect timing. This is all worlds come together here.
Hi, Varshini. So one of the things that I think I liked about what you just said is that you became kind of an informed civic agent, which I think is really important. You took the time to do your due diligence, you educated yourself, and then you were able to build better arguments based on the work that you did. And I think that's a huge part of being a success when you're trying to change something. I appreciated receiving your email very much, and I reflected on it after. So it's always good. It's always a note that you sent a really good email when I went to bed that night and was still thinking about what you sent to me. And one of the things that I was thinking about was that, you know, wouldn't it be amazing if we were able to organize like an international festival where we encourage not just businesses and restaurants in North Andover, but in our surrounding communities to come into North Andover, and maybe that would encourage them to come and build a permanent structure or building here because they know that there is interest in their food. So, you know, that's something that we could certainly work on together, and I'd be happy to do that.
That's so cool. That is really cool. And Varshini, you know, you and I can debrief on this, and I can connect you with Melissa or other people in town. But I wanted to say, Varshini, that I live in Melrose, and we have a Victorian fair every Labor Day weekend or around there, and all ethnic food come into the community. And a couple of them, I know we have a Thai place and a Mexican place that I do not think would have been in Melrose unless we had had a festival like Melissa had talked about. So something to think about, Varshini. And it's nice that you guys got to be brought together, even though it's only virtually. Janice, I'm going to have you go next if it's okay. And I'd love for you to comment on what Varshini's very unique project is all about.
Varshini, I am 100% on board with this initiative. There's nothing I love more than restaurant options. I have a couple of ideas for you, possibly. I'm a member on the board of the North Andover Merchants Association, and we will be putting on a fall festival. And tying in with what Town Manager Rodriguez has said, I would encourage you, if you're up for it, and I will help you, to reach out, because we are trying to look for ways to switch things up at our fall festival and do something a little bit different. And this has definitely piqued my interest about wondering if we can add in a new component to this that would actually sort of work toward your goals. So I really appreciate your project, and I would be happy to talk more with you about it.
Okay, so Varshini, lots for you and I to talk about Monday at the last week of school, but lots to talk about. Thank you. Thank you, Janice. That's really, really great. All right, Senator Tarr, I'm sure you like restaurants like all of us, and I'm sure you have some wonderful commentary on this.
I'll confess, Mr. McGravey, that the only cooking device I know how to use is a microwave, so therefore I do like restaurants very much. And but I want to point out that, first of all, Varshini, thank you for a wonderful project. And I want to point out that you've identified something that sometimes is one of the biggest challenges in public policy, and that is trying to compel a private business to do something that you want it to do. And incentives are the best way to do that. And I am really impressed, and I want to congratulate Melissa on coming up with an idea immediately. And this is exactly how democracy is supposed to work. You suggested an idea, you said there's an issue here, and Melissa came up with a solution. And that is what supercharges the effectiveness of government. So I would suggest that creating a fertile environment so that people could come into the town and see that there is a market for diverse food products and restaurants is a great idea. You may not believe this, but I've been involved in a few food festivals in my time, usually surrounding the promotion of fish and underutilized species. And one of the things that we found that's helped with that is to have some cooking competitions so that folks can see celebrity chefs that highlight products that they might not otherwise think of. And so I'd be happy to support this effort as well and do whatever I can to be helpful. But I think Janice may be thinking about that and getting some folks to come in and have some exhibitions as well as serving the food might be a good thing. But most of all, I would just want to highlight, Varshini, that you found a way to address that difficult thing of sort of the interconnect between the private sector and the public sector. And so congratulations and thanks to Melissa, and thanks to you for getting the project started. And I look forward to coming to North Andover for some of those diverse restaurants, but also helping you to get there.
Excellent. Thank you, Senator Tarr. Representative Minicucci, you're going to round out feedback for Varshini.
Great. Well, I know most people who know me know I love food, so I love this idea. And like Janice, as she's laughing here, because we're always looking for new places to check out. What I love about this conversation is that, kind of tag teaming what Senator Tarr said, is that it was Varshini's idea, which then kind of spurred another idea, and then everybody has snowballed into something that's actually really possible. And Rep. Vargas mentioned this earlier, and I mentioned it in my small meetings, but there's this minimum viable product. And when you come up with the problem in the community, you find diverse stakeholders. So it's important to have the public sector, private sector, everybody coming together for a solution and coming up with what's a little teeny tiny thing that we can try to, let's see if this works. And I love the idea of an international food festival of some kind. I love the idea of, I know when I was in high school, I actually ran an international food festival day because I wanted exactly that. And we had small tables and people came up and tried different food. And it was really an amazing experience. And I think to take that out of a school setting and bring it into the community would be fantastic. To bring, maybe people who are already have restaurants in other towns who already do this. It could be a really, really exciting opportunity. And I think it ties a lot in with, a little bit of what Henry was touching on, for example, and some of our other students, and talking about the need to have more diversity and inclusion across the board in our town. And this would really allow more members of our community to be exposed to different cultures. It'd be kind of fun to also, maybe include a little bit more than food too, but I think there's a lot of fun. And I think there are a lot of potential partners here, community partners that would be willing to work with you on this too. So congratulations, a great project.
So Varshini, I think you need to be on the North Andover payroll with everything. You're bringing all these amazing things and you're impacting all these people, and this is so great. So Varshini, you're welcome to stay, but I want to just say thank you so much for adding. This is a very different topic, and I think it made the SLCPro Expo better. So thank you so much, Varshini. I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so unfortunately, we are running a little behind, but that's okay. Josh Pelletier, Josh was here straight out of the box before 10 o'clock. He unfortunately has some kind of family commitment that he's not going to be able to be here. But I'm very happy to say that he had a Google Meet with Janice. And Janice, just to we're going to catch up a little bit on time here, so we won't need all the panel. But Janice, why don't you just maybe take a minute to talk about what your meeting with Josh was about and what came out of the meeting? And as a local rep, what did you think of the experience? Would you mind doing that?
I'm happy to. So Josh's project was our whole meeting was really cool, because Josh came into the meeting saying, I really don't understand why we don't have that middle school field yet. When I moved here, it was supposed to be the project was supposed to be started, and it still hasn't happened, and we can't let COVID keep it from happening. So then we started to talk, and he happened to choose something that I knew a little bit about. And so I was able to tell him that, funny enough, there's a lot of other reasons why that fields project hasn't gone forward yet. And so we had a really good discussion about how, it's impacting the neighbors, and they were not happy about that. And there were a lot of things that needed to be worked out, and it is currently held up in our legal system. And so it was very eye-opening for Josh. It was. So that's the quick summary.
It was so great because both Josh and I, we were like, oh, it's COVID. It's COVID. That's what's holding up. And Janice enlightened us and nope. It's people that are suing because of the lights, because of the turf. And so I think for Josh, while he wasn't satisfied, he felt reassured that he knew the reason why things weren't moving forward, which is civic agency as well. Not necessarily a resolution, but learning information. So that was great. So I think panel 2, thank you so much. I thought we had such a great dialogue with our 2 students, and Josh was able to get his project a little shout out here. I want to say thank you. You are totally welcome to stay, or you can take off on this busy Saturday, but I want to thank you all so much for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. This was a thrill to be able to participate, and congratulations to everyone involved.
Thank you, Senator Tar.
This was awesome, as usual. You've outdone yourself. So thank you.
Thanks,
to all of the students who are willing to put themselves out there like this. It's not an easy thing to do. So it gives me a lot of hope for our future. So.
On a Saturday on a very busy week. So thank you so much. Okay. So we're now ready to go into thank you, Melissa. We're now ready to go into the third panel. And Jaden and Javiani have been here since 10 o'clock supporting their classmates. And I just thank you so much for being here. What I'd like to do now, though, is I'd like to introduce the panel, if that's okay. This is a very special panel. I'm probably going to get a little emotional, a little gushy, and I hope I don't embarrass two of the panelists. But two of the panelists are former students. And, you know, I couldn't be more proud of these two. And the fact that they're here is just, it's just so great. So the first person that I'd like to introduce is Mr. Stephen Crowley, who was a student in my civics class, and he is actually now on the path to become a social studies educator, which I'm so just thrilled about. And I always used to sing an Ozzy Osbourne song, Mr. Crowley, to him, but I'm not going to do that today. I know we talked about David Lee Roth already, and I promised I'd never sing it in front of the students, but Stephen is currently at NAMS. He's done 2 long-term sub positions. That's how I started back in the day. And I have a feeling that Stephen has an amazing career ahead. Stephen has really been interested in the DKP curriculum and asked me for a lot of the lessons. So Stephen, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm doing good. I can't wait to hear about these projects.
Excellent. And the next former student is Christina Damian. We mentioned Caitlin Parks a little bit earlier, but Christina is in DC doing some really cool stuff. And she has a podcast, and she had Caitlin on it. And Caitlin's mom was like, you got to hear this podcast. It's so awesome. And they're talking about you. And they were talking about 8th grade at NAMS, and I was so moved. And I just said to Caitlin, I need Christina's contact information. And we've reconnected in the past couple months, and it's been amazing. And I'm so glad she's here. Hi, Christina Damian. How are you?
I'm doing so well. How are you, Mr. McGravey?
I am great. I'm so thrilled for you to be here.
I am so excited. Like it's so weird being seen as like an adult on the other end of this. So I'm really excited to get going with this and see what everyone has to say.
Absolutely. The next person is at the beginning of my educational career. I was trying to take an opportunity of finding good professional development. So I was brought to the Songus Industrial Center, 1997, 1998, something like that. And Sheila Kirschbaum is in charge of the programs and the curriculum at the Songus Industrial Center. Big shout out to them. I mean, what they're doing there is unbelievable. I've taken students there. I've taken camps there. And Sheila and I have remained connected. And she always is interested in what's going on in North Andover. And the connection with Sheila has been for a very, very long time. And I had to reach out because she has a wonderful perspective. Sheila, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Mr. McGravey or Pat.
Yes.
I feel honored to be part of this. I know that your energy around this project is infectious. Your students are benefiting from it. And even better, North Andover and the surrounding region will benefit from your work too. So I'm really so pleased and proud of all your work. I'm pleased to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you so much. So Rick Jacobs is another civic ally that I met a couple of years ago. He works for Congressman Seth Moulton, and Rick has come in to Civics Day on numerous occasions, and he has been very engaging for the kids. He is definitely not a boring speaker where kids fall asleep. They always get engaged, and he was nice. And one thing that was great was before the pandemic, March 17th, I'll never forget it. He actually, through the work of Caitlin Parks again, who I'm going to name drop, who was an aide for Congressman Moulton's office. Congressman Moulton was supposed to come in and speak to my students, and the pandemic, it just blew it up. And it was very unfortunate. But Congressman Moulton did do a Google Meet with me. He even brought his baby daughter on as well. And so, Rick, thank you so much for being here.
Mr. McGravey, thank you. When you were talking about your students, I thought you meant me, but
no.
Then I realized maybe I'm old enough to be your civics teacher. So I'm very excited to be here. Civics is immensely important and something we've, I think, strayed away too far away from, and we've seen the impact that's had on our democracy. So I really appreciate what you all are doing. And as the father of a soon-to-be 8th grader and the husband of an 8th grade math teacher, this is especially timely and near and dear to me. So thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Rick was also nice enough to meet with a student and I on a Google Meet, and we had an amazing Google Meet about conversion therapy existing outside of Massachusetts. And Rick brought a federal. We had state and local, but Rick always brings the federal perspective. So, Jaden Stickle, thank you so much for waiting here. You were here really, really early, and I appreciate you being here. Jaden, if it's okay with you, I'm going to ask you some questions, and then I want to share your brilliant product with the panel as well. So, Jaden, I give you a huge amount of praise on the topic that you picked, and you went so into detail, and you educated me so much about this. So, Jaden, could you just let the group know what was your topic and why did you pick it, my friend?
So my topic was the discrimination against the LGBTQ community, and I picked it because I've heard hundreds of events where this comes into play, between actual local incidents to things that I saw on a news article from the New York Times, Washington Post, to actually something on the morning news, which I occasionally watch. And that just really surprised me and disgusted me, because why is my question. But that's basically my project.
Great. Thank you so much. And Jaden, you talked about some research. You did some research. You put together a slideshow. I'm going to share that slideshow right now so the people on the panel can see it. And it's very, very impressive. And of course, it is part of the agenda as well. So let's get it here. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So obviously, Jaden really got into this. This is something that I think he could present to educate the community, including a civics teacher and all of you here today. He did a lot of research into the background, and he really makes it an issue that impacts multiple areas, to the point of even bringing healthcare into it. He then says, why should you care? He throws it onto the audience, and he shares his voice, and he lets people know, this should be on your radar. He then moves into statistics. He talks about the workplace. He talks about inequality. He talks about Supreme Court rulings. As you can see, credible research was not a problem for Jaden. This was right up his alley. And he did not, some of the kids needed my help once in a while on a constant basis. Jaden did not need me at all. He did not need a civics teacher for this. It was all him. He talks about some truths that he's discovered throughout this. He goes into talking about Tennessee and some other things that I have to admit I did not know a great deal about. He does see light at the end of the tunnel. He is an optimist and talks about moving forward. And now he moves into his proposal, talking about what he would like to do in his environment and who he would like to reach out to within his community. And then, he continues with the plan, and then he has some kind of takeaway, and he has some kind of conclusion. And then, of course, always putting the sources, even reaching out to contact him. So all of this is in the agenda. So Jaden, I want to compliment you on such a thorough slideshow. It was just so great. And I wish we had more time. And Jaden, if it's okay, can I go to the feedback now, or would you like to add something before we go?
Well, for one, I thank you. It did take a while. And there's not really anything else I would like to add, so please lay on your feedback.
Thank you, Jaden. All right, so Stephen Crowley, you are obviously going to be a social studies educator. I'm sure you're hoping that your first class is full of Jadens. So Stephen, just a little feedback, a little perspective, some questions that you would give to Jaden, either as his teacher or just as someone on the panel.
So Jaden, I'm really impressed that you went into the LGBTQ plus community, because I think that's a really big social problem with the middle school community. You know, you see a lot of discrimination against it, and I think it's important that you want to bring a assembly to this issue. I think that's wonderful. My questions I had for you was, I saw you had a slide on the Tennessee problem. Did you see any problems in Massachusetts that were like more local to us up here in Mass, or was it mostly down south?
Generally, the South is seen as a slightly more like, it's a stereotype that, oh, they're homophobic, racist people, but they're not. Sure, there are a lot of those, but that does not mean that everybody's there. There are some problems in Massachusetts, but those are just well spread, and not well spread, far spreading issues that encompass nearly the entire country, so not really anything generalized. And the only reason I talked about Tennessee is because it seemed like the most pressing thing, because the Tennessee governor actually signed a law that says they put up a warning sign stating that they allow transgender people to use their bathrooms.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you so much. That was great. And obviously, hearing Jaden, I immediately think of Stephen and Christina and their former selves, and I can only imagine what these two would have done with this project. And I have a feeling that they would have been on a Google Meet with us like this. And they're, and I think Christina in one of our communications said something, I wish I had something like this. So obviously, Christina, I know you're very fired up about this. So please speak to Jaden and share with us some feedback.
Well, thank you, Mr. McGravey. I have to say, Jaden, I am just so impressed just with your pretty much everything. The research that you did, how professional that you are right now. Like, I think if I didn't know that you were in 8th grade, I would have guessed you were at least in high school with the way that you're speaking. So thank you so much Oh, of course. I'm here to shower you with praise. You deserve it. I think the one question that I really want to ask you is, like, from your research, and something that struck me was, like, after looking into the South, we're learning that it's not all about the stereotypes, and it's not like that for everybody being like homophobic. So what about that gives you hope for the future, that we can progress to a better, more inclusive society?
I hope that generally people are told that, oh, these people are bad because one of 3 reasons. We don't understand them. They don't understand them, so a human nature is to just not like them because we don't understand them. Because they were told not to like them by a church, their parents, school, things like that. Or 3, they were on the news because because there was a weak correlation between, like, a black person committed a murder, and some people make the connection that, oh, that means that black people are bad and we need to hate them. Or sometimes, like, one person from a community or race or something else wronged someone, and then they made the connection that, oh, one person did this, so naturally all of them will do this. And now I'm hoping that we can just stop the like homophobic laws that are enacted, because there are still a lot of them. And yes, Biden did fix a few, but there are a lot of them. And yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Christina. That's a great dialogue that we have. And I echo Christina, when you and your classmates should totally be praised. Sheila, I would love to hear from you in perspective on what you thought Jaden did with his project, and love to hear your perspective.
I think it's really important work that Jaden has taken on here. It does seem like a very difficult problem where you've discovered, Jaden, that deep-seated feelings that could have been part of your life for a very long time that you've picked up from others, perhaps, or you have misunderstandings. They're very hard to eradicate. And thinking of what Mr. Crowley said, too, and I wonder what the role of education is in all this, but that's not the question I have for you. I'm kind of taking a historical perspective, as you would think from somebody who works at an industrial history center. And I wonder if in all the background work you did, you discovered anything in history that taught you about how groups who have suffered discrimination used existing political or social systems to make change, the way you're trying to make change.
I know a few of them offhand, not by research, but by simply, I enjoy history, so I go through history books occasionally. I think it was in Cuba or somewhere in that area where there was one person who didn't like, because this was in like the 1600s, 1700s, I think, when there was one black person who said, "Hey, I don't like this anymore," and stole a sword and started rebelling. And because of the social construct that says, "Oh, I don't want to be the first one to make change, but if someone else is doing it, and then I'll join, because I won't be punished as much as the first person does." So naturally, like 90% of the slaves joined, and even some of the free ones who just did not support slavery joined, and there was a massive revolt that basically freed nigh all slaves and killed many overseers.
Yeah, I think you're talking about Haiti against France Toussaint Louverture. Yeah, there we go. Because I used to teach that when it was in the U.S. history curriculum. So.
Yeah, and another example, which is actually not that, it's just that something that I found really cool, is that Alexander the Great had a legion of like 500 gay lovers, because he reasoned that instead, because they would fight harder if it was to protect their lover. And thus, they were some of the most elite soldiers in his legions, which I just found really cool.
I'm glad we got that history question from the Tsongas Industrial Center, bringing it all back. So thank you, Sheila. That definitely brought some very interesting conversation into this dialogue. Okay, Rick, you've been waiting patiently. I know you probably have feelings about this issue, and I know Congressman Moulton as well. So I would love to hear your perspective on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jaden. Great work on this. There are a handful of kind of famous quotes I find myself coming back to time and time again that kind of inspire the work I do. And one of them is the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And that's a MLK quote. And to me, it means two things. One is that, there are often times at any given moment in time, things don't feel like they're going so well, or maybe even that they're going backwards. But that if you take the long view, you see that we're bending towards justice. And I'm amazed at the progress we've made in this area, even since I was a kid. And it's because people kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And my second point is, social change is a marathon, not a sprint. And so I think it's really great that you have this sense of justice and awareness on this issue. And I hope you'll continue to push forward on it and recognize that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And so my question would be, what, if anything, has this inspired you to do kind of next on this issue?
It's mainly inspired me to take more of an action on social media, where I see it happening occasionally, places like in school, outside school, like at a park, places like that. And like Reddit in particular, there is a large group of LGBT phobic people, but there is an even larger group of people who support said community, who support the LGBT community, and I'm planning on attempting to help them in fixing the problems that happen in social media in general, because Reddit is one of the main forces in fixing them.
Excellent.
Although it's also one of the main causes, but we don't have to talk about that.
Jaden, thank you so much. You did such a phenomenal job, and you are welcome to stick around. And obviously, people are obviously going to be looking at your project on the agenda. So thank you so much, Jaden. I really appreciate it. And you're welcome to stay on or go on with your day, whatever you'd like to do. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. See you later. Bye-bye. Okay. So we're doing great on time. And it looks like I'm just letting a few more people in. So Javiani, you have been very, very patient. You have been here since 10 o'clock. As of right now, I'm trying to get into contact with Kira Rivers and Sean Sullivan. I'm not having any luck with that. But Javiani, if you don't mind, the last panel, I would like them to have an opportunity to also give you feedback. So we're going to supersize your feedback, if that's okay. Would you mind, Javiani, if we did that?
No, that's completely okay.
All right. Thank you so much. So let's talk about Javiani. So Javiani is an amazing, amazing student. I have seen so much growth in her from Unit 1 all the way to the SLCPro. She kept contributing more and more and more. And that's what you want as a teacher. You want to see development. And I will tell you, and I'm going to let her talk a lot more about this, but Javiani only picked a unique project. We were literally brainstorming in class about 3 weeks ago, and she was saying, I want to email someone. And I'm like, well, what is it about? And she's like, it's about school lunches and about money and paying for school lunches. And I was like, well, let's reach out to Assistant Superintendent Dr. James Mealy. And, she was like, what? I'm not going to email him. And I was like, try it. So she sent an email. Oh, good. Mr. Sullivan's here. Mr. Sullivan, we're working with Javiani, but we'll get to you in one moment. And so Javiani sent an email. And I know Dr. Mealy, he responds really quickly. He responded back to her, and it was like the program was sold right there. I mean, Javiani was like, I can't believe he just emailed me back. And then she had a live in-person meeting with him to talk about the issue. And it was only supposed to be a 10-minute issue. And it was 10 minutes and 20 and 30. It was like an hour meeting she had with him. And it was just, it was amazing. So everyone wants to know, Javiani, what is your project? Give us your topic.
So my project is about changing school lunches and allowing phones at school. It is a very difficult project to make it real because there is some rules against them, but I'm trying to figure that out slowly as I move on into this project.
So just to be clear, and your project is highlighted in the agenda, Javiani, you would like phones to be able to use, so there could be an app like a Grubhub for kids to get their lunches and have more variety and more choice and better quality, right?
Yes.
And what did you find in the research?
What I found is there is a lot of students about the phones that they feel a lot safer because people never know what could happen. In any occasion, there could be people like recently in 2019, between 2020 and 2019, mostly 2019, there was a lot of school shootings, and I feel like students having the ability to have their phones on them to contact their parents, hopefully maybe the last time, maybe not, because it could get to those points. It's very sad, but knowing that you can have your phone on you and that at any time something happens, you can contact your parents to let them know what is happening to you. I feel like that's a very good way to make students feel a lot calmer in school.
Great.
And for the lunches, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
For the lunches, I feel like there's a lot of waste on school lunches. Not many students eat their lunches. For me, when I used to live in Puerto Rico, I went to the school. They used to have like a whole kitchen. I didn't eat a lot. I got very bad. I got really sick. I had to drink some medicines because I didn't eat at all. And I feel like I don't want other students to feel that way because I did not feel good. Having that medicine was not good. But it's been over a year. I've eaten a lot more. But majority of the food they give in schools is a lot like sugars and things like that. So it's not like the healthiest meal we'll ever have. Also, eating from other places is not healthy, and I don't want it to be every single day. I would just want it to be in portions and days.
Great. So, Javiani, Dr. Mealy can't be here. He's a grandfather. He's got grandkids. He's always, on the weekend, that's his time with his family. But he did walk from his office to meet with you, and the meeting was a lot longer than we had anticipated. What did you think about meeting with the assistant superintendent? Like, what was that like? Like, what did you think of that experience? Because that's action.
That actually boosts up my confidence on what I'm making to this project, on what I'm trying to accomplish. It's like I got feedback from someone that could really improve my project in so many ways. He did give me a lot of quotes and like a lot of
statistics.
Yeah, about what schools have to do, and I took that and now I'm working on it. So it feels really good to have him.
Excellent. That's great. So Javiani, thank you so much. I am going to have Rick Jacobs start out giving you some feedback. So Rick, I'd love to hear you give Javiani some feedback and your impressions on her project.
Yeah, absolutely. Javiani, also incredible work. I think I had two kind of observations and pieces of feedback. One is I love the way you're thinking. Technology, as we've seen, has been a major disruptor and a force in some ways for good and a force in some ways for not so good. The way you're thinking reminds me of things like Uber or Amazon or things like that. The Uber changed the way we think about the taxi industry and transportation. Amazon changed how we shop. You're thinking about how do we completely change school lunch. And I think that's really exciting, and keep that kind of entrepreneurial spirit and idea going. The second piece is because I think there will be a lot of people who tell you no along the way, right? And the people who created these technologies that are revolutionary didn't listen to the people who told them no. And it's really important and it's good to be respectful and deferential of your teachers and your administrators and your parents. I think that's a good quality, but being respectful doesn't mean you have to agree with them. You can completely disagree with them. And you are going to find as you tackle bigger, harder, more difficult problems, almost never is it a black and white solution. Almost never is there a right answer and a wrong answer. So you'll sit down with someone like your superintendent and they'll give you great reasons why they think you can't do what you're saying, but there are a lot of great reasons why you can do. And so you have to kind of weigh those, and you have to be able to make a case and build a case for what you're doing, and find a way to continue to be respectful of people, because that's important, but also keep doing what you're doing. So keep it up.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you very much. Sheila, I'm going to go to you next. And please, we'd love to hear your feedback and perspective for Javiani's idea about school lunches.
Thank you, Pat. Nice job, Javiani. I think that you really do have a very interesting take on, in a way, multiple problems. It's kind of interesting how you've bundled a few issues into one, which in some ways gives your proposed solution even more clout. So you were thinking about waste, you were thinking about nutrition, you were thinking about safety, and interestingly about accountability. And that makes your argument, I think, even stronger and harder to resist. And yet, it seems like you got resistance in the form of these are the rules that we have to follow. So even if the assistant superintendent was very sympathetic to your desire for this change, it almost seemed to me like you are now going to have to tap into some patience and persistence. And it sounds like you've started to do that, to kind of push around those boundaries to see if there's another solution. Am I right about that?
Yes.
Well, I wish you good luck with that. It's sometimes hard to change those rules, but I think what bodes really well is the fact that you've already done a ton of work and you've already grown a great deal, and you can maybe even see that glimmer of hope that your very reasonable suggestion that has so much to commend it can actually be enacted, but it might take a while for you to make it happen. So congratulations. You should be proud of your good work.
And you know, it's funny, Javiani definitely had a, like, you can't fight City Hall moment, Mr. Smith goes to Washington moment, because she came back and she was like, I never knew the realities. And Dr. Mealy was so wonderful, but he was like talking about state law, and he did insinuate that his hands were tied, but he encouraged her to kick it up to the next notch. So Javiani started at the right place, and she can continue to move. So Sheila, you are so right on with that, and that's exactly what happened. So it was a huge lesson learned for Javiani. All right, Christina Damian, let's hear what you have to think about. You went to the middle school, you had the lunches, so you know where Javiani's coming from. Please share with us your perspective.
Thank you, Javiani. It's so great to hear you talking about particularly school lunches. I remember that was something like being there like almost 10 years ago now, like getting to experience and remembering how I wish there were more choices that we could have. I think the one thing, and maybe even Stephen can give more insight into this, he might even be knowing where I'm going with this, but I know at the high school, there was a class with Mr. Pecan Cannon where they actually made school lunches and sold them to the students for a little extra variety. And all that money actually went right back into the class and like buying more ingredients. I don't know, I can't remember if NAM still has like a cooking class type of thing, but that's just like something you can think about, that like while you do have the parameters that you're given, there are so many ways that you can still operate within that. So I encourage you to keep that drive and look into maybe see what the high school is doing, because I was a frequent customer of Pecan Cannon's lunches. They were so good, and they were all made by my peers, which made it even better.
Yeah, and Christina, Pete retired, but I think it was called the Focus program, but it's still there. It's still continued, and people have continued with it. So that's definitely something for Javiani to think about and connect with when she goes to high school. So that was great. Thank you for bringing that little North Andover High School insight into where Javiani's going next. Miss Stephen, let's hear what you have to say about Javiani's project.
Yeah, Javiani, I think it's great that you're bringing this attention to school issues with the school lunches, because as you've seen at your time at NAMS, there is a lot of waste of school lunches and school snacks and things like that. And I think it's a great way for you to come up with an idea of how do we fix that? How do you solve that issue? And going off of what Christina was saying, that focus program, school lunches being cooked by the students, was a great thing the high school did. And maybe it is something that we can bring to the middle school and have around. But something else you might want to think about is, I know that at the high school, I know this was a long, long time ago, they used to have seniors used to be able to go around town to get their lunches. And I know that we have a couple restaurants right across the street from the middle school. So maybe something like on Fridays, the 8th graders could go to Sal's Pizza or something like that. Maybe would be a cool option for you guys to do. So that could be something else to look forward to or look into.
And even Javiani, your little app idea, while the app isn't going to the cafeteria, your app's going to Stacci's or Sal's or Pizza Factory.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a whole other thing, like Grubhub, you know?
Yeah, it would go to like local restaurants, and I wouldn't like want it to be every single day because I know there's gonna be people that are gonna get tired of it. Having lunch from a same place, maybe they like that place specifically every single day. I would get tired of it. So having like days of the week that we would have like those special days, like maybe Tuesdays and Thursdays, and like have like whatever we would like to have in those 2 days would be really nice.
Javiani, thank you so much. Before Javiani leaves, Stephen, you were a teaching assistant substitute for a number of weeks, and you were in a class with Javiani and Jaden. So what do you think? Like, you've seen the genesis of Javiani and Jaden in March, and now you see them now. Just share with us your impressions.
I am so impressed with the two of them and how much work that they've been able to accomplish in this short amount of time, in this crazy year that we've had at NAMS middle school. You know, I am really impressed with all the stuff that you guys were able to do this year. Just hats off to you, hands up, round of applause. I can't give any more impression of how impressed I am with this 8th grade class this year.
And Stephen and Christina, did you graduate the same year, or were you a couple years apart?
Year above.
1 year
1
apart.
year.
Rachel was at Stephen.
Okay, so, all right, sorry.
Yeah.
We're doing a little 8V reunion here. We're not gonna bore you anymore with this, but anyways, so I think what we're gonna be. So Javiani, you're welcome to stay, but thank you so much. You definitely brought a lot to this today, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, Javiani. Thank you. So we're getting close to time. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the third panel, if that's okay. The final panel, I should say. So if the third panel want to stay, that would be great. But I do have 2 more students that are going to be sharing their projects. So Christina and Stephen, thank you so much. So great to reconnect with you. I know we're going to keep it going. Sheila, thank you so much. I really appreciate you partnering with me again. And Rick, as always, thank you. And I'm sure you're going to let Congressman Moulton know what these kids have been doing.
We'll get them back on the books. I'm sorry we had to cancel because of the pandemic, but until then, I'm happy being second fiddle.
That's great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rick. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so we're now going to move to the final panel. We're doing okay on time, and I know that the people that just came on, I really appreciate you being patient. We've obviously, the panelists, we've really gone off. It's been amazing. So I'd like to introduce the panel. Some I've known for a while, and some I've known until recently. So the first person that I'd like to introduce on the panel is someone I met a couple years ago. When she was first coming to office, and I actually got to know her as she was running for office, and that's State Representative Trom Wynn. And Trom continues to be one of my biggest civic allies. She's always there when I need her. She responds to emails. She's come in physically and been with the kids. She's going to come back again, I know, once we're able to do that. She's done Google Meets with me, and she's just been a huge supporter of the program, and I'm so happy that she could be here today. Trom, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Really glad to be here. Really glad to continue to partner with you and support the great work the students are doing, and looking forward to getting to know the other panelists as well and getting to know the students.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Trom. So the next 2 people that I'd like to introduce are my colleagues at the Democratic Knowledge Project. And it is so wonderful to have them here because they've been with me since the beginning. This is an up. This is a big up. I'm not going to lie to you. There's been some downs. And both Lisa and JP have been there for me throughout all of this. So my success is their success because they play a huge role in this. At the Democratic Knowledge Project, we have pods where we meet together once a month with other teachers that are piloting. And JP Ware is, was the leader of the pod. And, she's like my DKP mom, I guess I should say. She's just been so wonderful to me. And it's just been so wonderful to get to know her and continuing our relationship. So JP, thank you so much. Would you like to just introduce yourself and say hello? You might be muted, JP, I think. Maybe. So it's a little different than Zoom. It's the little microphone.
Okay, I think I'm okay now. Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Sorry for the little glitch. I am thrilled to be here this morning. Seeing students present real work is always a highlight, a real up, as you're saying, Pat. And having seen the work moving through the curriculum for a couple of years, this is really quite a moment to see what students have ended up actually doing on their own, out of their own passion for this kind of civic action. So thank you, Mr. McGravey, and it's nice to see my colleagues and see some new friends here from North Andover. I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you. Oh, I muted myself, sorry. Lisa from the DKP. Lisa does a lot of research and works with the research team, and really the DKP, as I've said many, many times, and I'm sure JP and Lisa will be bored about this, being in education for 24 years, they always ask for my feedback, and I always give them feedback. And they never do anything, they being in the world of education. The DKP was the first time ever that I gave them feedback last summer, as well as my colleagues in the DKP. Big shout out to all the pilot teachers. They literally, George talks about this changing and evolving. They made changes. We said, you got to put more of the revolution in here. And they did. And so Lisa has been in my class. Lisa was studying my class, and she was in my class for like 3 months on my remote class, my older kids, every day. So she has seen what these kids have done. She did a study with the kids where she actually interviewed a bunch of my kids. So to have Lisa here on the panel is huge. So Lisa, would you like to introduce yourself and say a quick hello?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Pat, for inviting me. It was such an honor and a pleasure to be a fly on the wall in Mr. McGravey's Google Meet for 3 months. I followed Pat through all of Unit 2A and 2B, which is sort of the meat of the curriculum. And we learned so much by following him. And also thank you to Principal Guncalls, because I know that it's not easy to allow researchers in. And we're so grateful for the access that he's been a big supporter of the DKP. Pat, you should know that we talk about you all the time at our team meetings. You're like an honorary member of the DKP staff, truly. And Chebong is one of my colleagues as well. And Chebong and I, we're so grateful for the access that you've given to the student work and the interviewing your students. We've learned so much from working with you, and we're so excited to continue the partnership next year.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much. So now I have another, Max was a new ally, and we have Pamela Potowski, who is recently elected to the North Andover School Committee, a parent and now a member, a civic actor within it. And when Halen could not come, Halen and I said, what a great way for Pam to be introduced to the civics pilot to be a panelist. So Pam, thank you so much for joining us and being part of all of this.
Well, thank you for inviting me. This is such a fun event to be part of. And I just would like to say I was looking through all of the work that you've already put together that you had emailed previously. And I am just so thoroughly impressed with the level of work that has gone in on both the teachers and the students. And I just love to see the authentic connections that these kids are making, and how much learning they are getting out of this whole experience. I mean, taking this, they were probably scared to start, right? Like this big, huge project, and seeing how things can be broken down into smaller, like little pieces, and how you can make it into like manageable little steps or not little, but smaller steps, right? Is just such a powerful thing. And I'm so excited to be here. So thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, Pam. And I'm so glad to have you as a civic ally on the school committee. And this is just so great. So welcome to this. Okay, so Kira Rivers, you are here. Kira, you are here, correct?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, Kira, so it's very, very easy. I'm just going to walk us through your project. And I appreciate you being here. And I know it's a Saturday. It's very, very busy for you. So, Kira, could you let the panel know what was your topic and why did you pick it?
So my topic was about dress codes and how I think they target the female body. And I chose this project because I think it's a really big issue among high schools and middle schools all over the US and honestly all over the world.
So Kira taught me so much about dress code and the impact, how it's impacted her. She's got two older sisters who have both graduated from North Andover High School, who were my former students. And so, you know, she really, really did her research in personalizing this and seeing how it impacts others. She also taught me a term that I never knew, being dress coded. She's like, oh yes, I got dress coded. I'm like, dress coded? What the heck is that? And what is dress coded, Kira? Please enlighten those people like me who didn't know what it was.
Dress coded is kind of like just a term that I know that a lot of people in the school use when someone who violates or just wears something that's out of the dress code and gets in trouble for it.
Perfect. Thank you. So you added to my repertoire of slogans that I didn't know. So Kira, you did some awesome research. You looked at school systems all across the country and you learned so much. You did a survey that you surveyed students on a Google form. So could you tell me, what did you learn from your research and what did you learn from your classmates? Because we dropped your Google form on all 5 of my Google classrooms. So please, let's hear from, what did you get out of all that research?
Yeah, so from the research, I looked up school handbooks from states and counties and schools all over the country. And I found some very shocking dress codes, to say the least. Some of them are more strict than our personal dress code at North Andover Middle School, but some of them were even less strict, but most of them were about the same level as our middle school. And I found that a lot of the students within these schools were unhappy with the dress codes that they were provided, and they also thought that they were targeting to the female body, and some of the consequences for these dress code violations were very extreme.
And what did you get from, what did the student, I know you said that, you know, what did you get from the students filling out that survey? Like, did you get any takeaways?
Yeah, so there was about 50 people who took the survey, and out of those 50 people, 100% said that things like knees, skin, midriffs, and bra straps aren't distracting to a learning environment. And they said that only 2 people said that they've seen a male receive like a dress code violation, and more than 95% of people said they've seen a female receive a dress code violation.
Thank you, Kira. And if anyone's interested in Kira's Google form, it is part of the agenda, so you can check that out. So Kira, you totally went into the action mode because you were one of the students that had a live meeting with an administrator. And we have a wonderful, brand new vice principal, Miss Beasley. The person that she replaced, Cheryl Ramondo, you know, I worked with Cheryl for many years. So when Cheryl left, I was devastated. Because she's so amazing. But it was a gift getting Caroline because she is cut of the same cloth. And Caroline has been so supportive. She has a family obligation today or she would be here. But yeah, both Caroline and George were willing to meet with students, which, you know, some administrators, especially if you know what George and Caroline are going through with graduation, you know, just kudos to them. So you had a meeting with Miss Beasley. It went really long. We didn't get to have a second meeting because you were still talking. She was raving about the meeting. I wasn't even there. So could you please let everyone know, A, what was the meeting like? What was it like to have a meeting? And what did you get out of the meeting? What did you learn? Okay.
Yeah, so the meeting was a very relaxed type meeting. So I wasn't too stressed about what I was saying and how the reactions were going to be. But Miss Beasley agreed with what I was saying, and she thought that
dress codes can go past gender and into religion and personal preference. So that was really interesting to hear because she thinks that it's almost a more serious topic than what I've been touching upon.
Great. And she also relayed that, she's having retreats and meetings this summer with high school administration as well. So that'll carry over into her colleagues at the high school, which was great. Okay. So Kira, I think we know a lot about your project and you spoke eloquently about it. So thank you. Trom, I'm going to let you do the first round of feedback, questions, suggestions, anything you'd like to say. Love to hear from you, Trom.
Thank you so much. And Kira, I have to say kudos to you. This is such a great topic. I'm just so impressed with this, you paying attention to equity and how that affects students, especially how it affects female students disproportionately. And for me, I think that to your point, this is beyond just what to wear, because number one, what you wear is an expression of who you are and also relates to religion and personal preference, as you said. I'm curious to know, in terms of dress codes, are you seeing that dress codes are determined at the state level or at the school level? And also, in terms of the people that you surveyed, I know you mentioned 100% of people said that knees or bra straps and otherwise are unfair to females. Are there any other suggestions as to what would be an appropriate dress code that would be fairly applied to both boys and girls? And also, I think that it's just so important to think about mental health too, and what that means for our confidence level, and for girls to be told to cover up and that you are a distraction to others. That's very problematic to me. And so I just love this idea. I'm just so excited that you're touching upon this, and would love to see how I can be supportive of it.
Yeah, thank you. That's so awesome.
Kira, did you want to respond to any of those things that Trom said to you? Like any response to her feedback?
Yeah, of course. So in the survey that I gave to the students in my class, I asked an open response answer where they could write a sentence or two about what they thought about their personal experience with dress codes. And I've gotten a lot of people saying one of two things, that they're inconsistent, how a girl can be dress coded for the same thing a boy won't be dress coded for. And sometimes two girls will be wearing the same thing, but one gets dress coded and not the other. And the second thing is that it goes past just what they're wearing. It's not really just what they're wearing, it's what they want to wear. So there's a mental aspect to this as well that affects the students if you do dress code them.
Excellent. Thank you, Kira. Thank you so much. And obviously, we've been speaking with kids. Trom has offered support. So if there's any way that I can connect you with State Representative, I'd be happy to do that. All right. Okay. So JP, I'd love to hear your perspective and giving some feedback to Kira. I think you're still muted. I think
I'm figuring it out, Pat.
Yeah, you're a Zoom person, and when I'm the opposite when I'm on Zoom, so no worries.
There's all these different systems. Kira, thank you so much for sharing your amazing research and your project with everybody. I completely applaud your courage and your bravery in diving into a topic that you felt a passionate personal connection to. I think it's so important to grab a hold of something that is powerfully concerning you and take on some sort of information gathering and then action based on that. I applaud your courage in doing that, especially within a controversial issue where there are probably going to be either adults or even friends, peers, who think that you're overstepping or that what you're asking them to consider is uncomfortable. I wondered, I did want to say, as you went through your research, I was so pleased to hear you and humbled that you were able to go into that meeting with the principal, with Ms. Beasley, and listen to what she was offering about the fact that maybe this dress coding issue isn't just gender-based, and asked you to consider that it may be a broader issue that truly takes on more seriousness when you consider that it is broader than just the one application you were sort of focused on. And I appreciated your willingness to hear that and to really consider it into what you're going forward with. So in that way, I just wanted to ask you, was beyond some of the things that you share, was there something that really surprised you from all the research you did when you took your work a little beyond NAMS?
Yeah, the thing that surprised me the most was how extreme some schools were taking the consequences for their dress code violations. A certain one that stood out to me was that a student was forced to duct tape her legs after.
Well, Kira is in the car, so I think we might have lost her.
Okay.
Kira, if you can hear us, if you want to come back on, that would be great. And I think Kira's going to a dance recital, so clearly she's got a lot going on. But I'm really glad that she can come back if she needs to. But what I'm going to do is I am going to take notes from Lisa and Pam, and I'm going to share those notes with Kira via email this afternoon. So JP, thank you very much. I'm sorry we got cut off, but I think, Lisa, what would you like me to share with Kira?
Sure. So one thing I would have just said to Kira, which is a huge kudos, is, as the researcher in the group, Chaebong's also a researcher, 50 responses on a survey is incredible. And for an 8th grader to get 50 responses, Chaebong and I have been in classes all week observing SLCPro presentations, and a lot of students have like 10 responses or 15 responses. So just really well done to Kira on getting 50 responses. And I just wanted to reemphasize the power of data, that it can for a school committee or an administrator, saying I'm a student and I have these feelings is really important, but saying 50 of my colleagues or 100 of my colleagues or my classmates have this experience just speaks much louder. So I would encourage her to continue to use data to inform policymaking as much as she can. And then it sounds like I wasn't quite clear on the change she wanted to see. So
Kira's back. So Kira, Lisa is just talking about how brilliant your research was and how great it was that you got research back. And I have some comments that I'm going to email you from JP because I know you're in the car. So Lisa, do you just want to continue where you left off since Kira's here? Thanks for coming back, Kira.
Kira, I just wanted to commend you on getting 50 respondents for your survey. That is incredible work. And just to reiterate how important data is when you're trying to make policy change, and having heard from, I'm not sure what percentage that is of the 8th grade, but having heard from a large percentage of the female population of 8th grade, you're going to be much better off making change if you can get, build the support and show the administrators that your issue matters, that there are these young women who are experiencing this issue. I just wanted to ask you just to clarify specifically what change you want to see at NAMS. So I think I'm a little unclear on that. And it sounds like you want gender parity, so you want the same dress code applied equally to both boys and girls, and girls among, so some girls who dress a certain way are let off the hook and others aren't. You want like that sort of equity across the board. And then another question I had was just, is there a way that if the dress code stays, that the administration or teachers could apply it in a way that is like less obtrusive, maybe less, direct? Is it, like a note could be given to students like privately, or do you have ideas about the way that the dress code could be administered in a way that might be more respectful to the young women who are experiencing stress when they get dress coded?
Yeah, so I think that a very important part is the person who might be distracted by what a certain student might be wearing is usually listened to, but the student who's wearing the clothing that will be considered a dress code violation aren't necessarily like their point of view isn't necessarily taken into account. And I think that's really important because they might not see it as distracting or a dress code violation, but some people might see it as that. So I think that needs to be taken into account, like the perspective of the student. And I just think that it's really important that the dress codes are equal for every single student in the school.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, Kira, it's great that we're going to turn it over to Pam because as a member of the school committee, policy is definitely part of her responsibilities and approving policies and all these other types of things. So Pam, I'm sure you have a lot to say about Kira's project and we'd love to hear your feedback for her.
Yeah, so as you were talking, I had a lot of thoughts actually going through my mind, and just how it's not always on everyone's forefront of how it is inequitable about how dress code policies are enforced. And actually, as you were telling this story, I was thinking back to how my mom was telling me back in, the long time ago, 100 years ago, on how she was actually dress coded in a really shameful way as a student who didn't have her dress below her knees and was totally shamed. And so I was thinking how you're right, women and girls are usually more targeted more. As a teacher who's taught in a few different districts, I can also tell you that there is sometimes these dress codes are put into place for safety reasons. And so I just want you to be kind of mindful of that. And so as I was thinking of that, I've worked in districts where we had, like gang members and whatnot. And so you had to be careful about, though that was one of the reasons for dress codes. And actually in that case, uniform policies were put into place. And I am a little unclear about what change you would like to see made. Like, is there something in the policy right now that clearly states male students X, Y, and Z, female students X, Y, and Z? And is it the wording that needs to be changed? Is it the actual dress code that you would like to see changed? Is it how do you want it, and like the enforcement of it in that kind of way? So just so you can start thinking about the actual plan that needs to go into place. But I love this work, and it is so true. I've had conversations with my own children about dress codes and what they're wearing to school and that kind of thing. And just there's like a whole conversation that you can have in a whole bunch of different ways, right? And so it's really great to have these conversations and see what the best plans could be and what they should be.
And Kira, before you respond to that, I just want to let you know, voice and power. You're literally speaking to someone on the school committee right now. So please, we don't know if this will be another opportunity anytime soon. So go for it. You're in a very safe place. Pam is very open to hearing the dialogue. So do not hold back, my friend.
Will do. So in our the NAM school dress code, it says that it's like non-gender targeting. But then as you scroll down a little bit, you can see that it says no midriffs will be seen. And one can argue that that's a gender neutral term, but I believe that actually targets the female gender, as crop tops and tube tops and halter tops are very popular among teenage girls, including myself. And it's hard to find clothes sometimes in stores that aren't cropped or a little bit shorter, because that's how a lot of the fashion is today. And it's very hard to find clothes that are fitting for the dress code.
I agree with that. I've had a really hard time myself.
Well, Kira, I know you got another place to go. All right. So I'm just going to say thank you for responding to my email, and thank you for coming back. And we really, really appreciate it. And your SLCPro really got a great buzz with the panel. And so I'm so glad you got to come and do this. So thank you so much, Kira.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Applause all around, Kira. All right. Sean Sullivan, are you there, my friend? So everyone, this is Sean Sullivan, who the students, and even the civics teacher call Sully. So he goes by Sully. It's just Sully is someone that we really enjoy working with. He is definitely, as we often say, an old soul. And I think you're going to really get a really cool perspective from him. And he has a very cool topic that is meaningful to him, but meaningful to so many others in the North Andover Public Schools. And so his deals with music and band, both at the middle school and at the high school. And Sully made it very clear that this was aimed at middle and high school, because that's where he is right now. So Sully, do you just want to let the panel know what is your topic? Why'd you pick it? Why do you feel it's important, sir?
Sure. So I picked the topic kind of, why is there no string section in the NAMS and North Andover High School band? Because it got brought up in one of our band classes recently. I was just like, why don't I kind of pursue that? That's a little like, why don't we have one?
Excellent, excellent. So Sully, and Sully has been sick a couple days this week. So obviously he did send an email yesterday. We sent an email yesterday, but it was, he will definitely be getting a response to that, but it was really important. He got the project done. It was due yesterday and everything was great. And he did a phenomenal job. So Sully, tell us a little bit about your research that you found about other band programs, either in Massachusetts, in the country, or internationally.
Sure. So I found out one very key information about all bands is that they have little to nothing with strings. There's the best instance is Wikipedia said that there was only one thing in the string section, and that was a low string instrument, and that was one person. And as a personal French hornist, I know it's pretty scary to get up there being the only instrument doing that one specialized role.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so great. That's really, what a great perspective. As someone that didn't do band, I learned so much about the program and the importance of how everything works. So Sully, you felt like you wanted to send an email, and you crafted a beautiful email, and the email is in the agenda if the panel want to look at it at some point. So my question is twofold. Number one, why did you choose to do an email instead of a poster or something that your classmates might have done? And secondly, I sent the email. How did it feel to like send the email and be part of that action as opposed to voice? So if you could touch upon those two things, that would be great.
Sure. I decided to send an email because personally, I'm a pretty lazy guy, but I also figured that, well, where can I put in least input to get the most like voice output here? So I decided, why don't I send an email to someone like the president of the North Andover Musical Society to see if it can get kind of circulated. And then I chose that for one reason. And then, oh, you're on mute, Mr. McGravey.
Thank you, Sully. Sully and I were pleasantly surprised. And of course, I've known Mr. Nelson for a very long time, who's in charge of the music program, and Mr. Inos, and they're just amazing, amazing people. But the music department, they have their act together. If you want to communicate to the North Andover music program, and I could let Pam know this as well, and I'm sure George already knows this, but they have a detailed page with every person and all the people on the committee and their emails. So that made me and Sully made us feel really, really good that all we had to do is cut and paste those people and communicate. And obviously they're going to get back to us. So I thought that was a really, really great thing to do. So Sully, thank you for I know it was very hard for someone being first, Isabella, way back at 10. It's not always easy being last and having to wait. And I really appreciate you hanging on with us on your Saturday. So I'm going to start with Pam. I'm going to go in the reverse order if that's okay. So Pam, I'm going to start with you so you don't go last this time.
Okay. So this is awesome. And as you were saying it, I never even thought about it, but thinking back to my own school experiences, there are no string parts to the bands, and why not? What I don't know why. Did you get an answer from your email? I'm sorry if I didn't see the email that was sent out, but what was the result? Do you know yet?
I'm still kind of at the beginning of my odyssey here. I have not gotten a real response, but I'm hoping for one pretty soon. I know it's the weekend and people are, catching up with family.
Yeah, so. Sully had been sick for a couple of days, so
right.
I didn't want to send it until I had his blessing.
Sure.
So I did send it after dinner yesterday, and I'm anticipating that we're going to get something back the beginning of the week. And if I don't get anything Monday, Mr. Nelson's a good friend of mine, so I'll definitely lean on him to get a response. But please continue, Pam.
So I was just thinking, have you considered a survey for students who potentially might want to join band or currently are in band and getting an interest and see kind of to gauge how, that might be a nice point of data that you could bring to the table as, hey, I've asked the students and we have a really good interest. And so that might make your petition hold a little bit more weight. I'm wondering if you've done something like that. And I just love this idea. It's so great. They should have string in the band. I don't know why they don't. And I don't think they, again, 100 years ago, I don't think they have.
Nope, absolutely not. That's great feedback, and that's really cool. And I think we realize how easy it is. Since the pandemic, many teachers, including myself, did not really lean on Google Classroom. And now I can't live without it, to the point where next year my class is paperless. It's all Google Classroom. If you had told me that 2 years ago, I'd have been like, no way, my paper, no. So obviously that's an opportunity that Sully and I can probably put together and reach out to my students on the Google Classroom before, and then my former students come Thursday. So thank you, Pam. That was great feedback. All right, Lisa, I'd love to hear from you and giving Sully some feedback on his SLCPro.
Yeah, great job, Sully. Pat, I don't think you know this about me, but I'm a former violinist, so I do have a lot of background knowledge on this topic. Sully, I'm happy to talk to you offline about this too. So one question is, I guess, what would be the change that you hope to see at your school or at the high school? So would that be having strings incorporated in the band? And if so, then I think what you're talking about more would be an orchestra, which could be either like a string only orchestra or like a full orchestra with, French horn and woodwinds and everything. I know at the high school level, oftentimes the marching band is a big deal, and you may know this, but unfortunately there's no place for strings in the marching band, which is why they are sort of segregated. And the other thing you may know is that string instruments tend to be harder to learn, and so kids start younger. So I would echo Pam in considering a survey, because I bet there are string players in the NAMS community that you could identify through a survey. And then maybe get those kids together to do their own either chamber music, which would be like a string quartet or a quintet, or something smaller, or an orchestra. But and obviously when you talk to the band teacher, that person can tell you all about this. But I would maybe go back to the research and see who in your community is involved in string instruments, and then trying to get those kids involved. And then if there is room to do orchestral music at the middle school or high school level, that might be a next step for you. But as someone who plays the violin, and this is definitely a passion of mine, and I definitely applaud you. And we know from the research that music programs truly save lives, right? We know that kids who struggle or who have social issues often turn to music or the arts in middle school and high school. And so that your topic is critically important, and more support and advocacy that you are doing to support the arts, I just applaud you, and I think it's such important work. So thank you so much for this project. And yeah, happy to continue. I can nerd out with you about strings all day long. So happy to talk more with you about that.
That's so cool. Thank you for sharing that, Lisa. And Sully, Pam and Lisa just gave you such cool feedback, and just someone who helps you facilitate The survey idea I love, but I also love like surveying parents too, like parents of little children who maybe want, that it could be a K through 12 perspective. I know we only focused on middle and high school for your project, but again, that's something pretty cool to do. So you and I have a lot to talk about on Monday. JP, before you go on, I just want to say that Sully, I do have monthly meetings in a North Pod, and JP is the person that's in charge of that. So I talk about all of you all of the time and just rave and brag and praise. And JP was lucky enough to come in and see my students last year in action before the pandemic. So I am thrilled that JP can realize that you all live up to the hype. And it's moving. I mean, Lisa knows them and sees them, but it's very moving for me. It's a really full circle moment where I get to have JP, my pod leader, meet and hear from my students. It's wonderful. Okay, JP, I set you up beautifully, my friend.
Well, you certainly did. I hope I can live up to that. Sully, it really is such a thrill. And as Pat said, there's nothing better for those of us who've stepped a little bit away from direct classroom work to see what happens to great classroom work when it really is put into the hands of kids. And as usual, the kids yourselves, the students, will show us the way. And hopefully we are all wise enough to pay attention. I loved hearing about your project, and especially sort of jumped out at me your sort of sweeping view of what was I going to go to, what was I going to research, what was I going to probe. And I loved that you chose an issue that you went to out of deep curiosity. Your wonder was about, well, why isn't there a string section, versus you holding that question in yourself and then chasing it down. Your ability to sort of seek and find something that made you curious around a program that didn't exist turned out to be a wonderful catalyst for so much of what you learned and are now able to promote. I was so happy because well, when we get heavily into sort of civics and social studies and history learning, sometimes we veer a little bit away from the enormous importance of integrating the arts into all of those dense content areas. And the fact that you're bringing attention to that critical component of really deep learning and deep comprehension, I think is an enormous potential outgrowth for your project to develop some curiosity in others. We know, and so much research tells us that the arts provides an entry point for students into every other deep understanding that they gain through life. So thank you for going to after the big game here, Sully. It's a wonderful thing. I had one question that I've been so curious about, and it's coming to me in doublefold now. I wondered if you can just share with us in terms of the kind of learning that you felt you experienced doing this work, this project, moving towards this student-led civics action piece. What's your feeling about the kind of learning you had from this particular experience, especially coming up to the end of the year? The engagement that is still going strong on June 16th is remarkable. So that makes me curious about what it was you felt about the kind of learning that was yours from this kind of work.
Well, generally, in civics as a whole, I kind of felt like, obviously it's kind of like a brand new, maybe a little buggy system, but as an overall for civics, it was kind of like a reliever. It was like, I don't have to show up having to study for anything. I don't have to show up. I just have to kind of show up and perform. And that gets me the good grade in this class, which is always, and personally, I can speak for some of my classmates. they really enjoy that too, where they can just kind of come into class, they can perform, that gets them the A, and then go do a project like this, and they can still perform and do really good on a project like this for something maybe they don't even crank up to like 11 here with it.
And the crank up was I did an analogy. It's an older movie. It's called This Is Spinal Tap from the 80s. It's about a washed up rock band, and there's a volume, and the guitarist is like, our volume goes up to 11 and theirs go up to 10, but ours go up to 11. So I said to the kids when we started this, like, I'd love it if the volume was at a 7, because that's voice. I don't want it 654. Now, if we can get it to 9, 10, 11, that would be amazing. And I will say that many kids did kick it up to 10, 11. And the other thing is, like, sometimes when I'm in class last week, I had to pinch myself because I'm like, it's the teens of June, and every single kid is like laser focused. And Sully will testify. Sully, am I making this up, or did this actually happen?
Actually happened. Everyone's still pretty laser focused, and I sit in the back of the room, so I see everyone's heads. They're not.
I mean, I couldn't believe it. I mean, when this was presented to me at Harvard, in Cambridge 2 years ago, and Lisa and JP were there, I was like, "What? You want them to do a project in June? Are you crazy?" And even going into it in the pod meetings, I was like, I don't know if I can. And so it just, and the classic, sports movie, Field of Dream. If you build it, they will come. They did. And so Trom, I think this is a perfect place for you to offer the last bit of feedback for Sully.
Thank you for that. I was actually in the middle of typing out my suggestion because I do have to run at 1 to speak at another event. But I'm glad that you all got to me. Thank you, Sully, for sharing your project. I think it's great that you are that you're pursuing this and that you already sent the email. But one suggestion I would give is that it'd be I think it'd be beneficial to you to follow up the email with a conversation. I think conversation is so key, the back and forth, to understand why there are no strings, or for the school department to see your passion too, because you can only convey so much in an email. And I think that having that conversation and trying to see what alternatives exist out there could be a part of that conversation. Secondly, I completely agree with the other panelists that data is so important, just to engage the interest out there. And as someone who's been working on policy, I know the importance of even incremental changes and also seeing alternatives. If you can't change the policy, what is the workaround? So a potential workaround could be, if there are kids interested in string, if you can even make a club, get together and perform something with strings and show the music department, look, there's all this interest. Can we somehow incorporate this into the school curriculum? So would just suggest you thinking of that, or alternative or other alternatives to show the level of interest and to push this issue forward. And I applaud you for bringing this issue to my attention. Now thinking back, I was like, oh yeah, I didn't realize that. It's not something that I was considering, but I'm glad that you are looking into this, and really I'm thrilled to see that you are going to be pursuing this with the help of Mr. McGravey and others. And I would love to kind of see where this goes for you. So best of luck.
Thank you, Trom, so much. So Sully and some of the people who maybe came a little bit late to this, I began, and Mr. Gonsalves was there at the beginning, and I see Mark and Max and Javiani and Paul, they were all here. I said that I wasn't an athlete and I couldn't make any sports analogies, but I love music. And I talked about me wanting to be the lead singer of Van Halen, or in Civics wanting to be Tip O'Neill. And I definitely had an opportunity to do this, both like Tip O'Neill, bringing people together, and this whole SLCPro, I thought of a concert. The first song with Isabella was amazing. And Sully, you were what they call the encore, my friend, where we had an encore and we're going to end, and the crowd's definitely going to want more. So thank you for going last. And to Javiani and Paul, thank you so much for being here still. To my panelists, thank you so much for giving such great feedback. This has been an amazing day. I know Trom had to go to another event. and obviously to my principal, Mr. Gonzalez, George. I cannot thank you enough for being here and doing all of this. This has just been an amazing day. It's a very emotional day for me, and this has completely exceeded my expectations. People know I'm a pretty positive, upbeat guy, but I can't believe what we've done here today. And it's going to be amazing to see what we do next year, hopefully when we're live and we can do it. So Sully, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And with that, I am going to stop recording, and